It's our intention to get through it all, but we'll see how that goes, I suppose. So anyway, I'd like to welcome everyone to our regular council meeting of May the 13th. And I wish to begin by acknowledging that we are meeting on the territory of the Sooke Nation, and that we as council recognize their governing structure as well as their long history and connection to the lands and seas. So as we begin, some things that I have been doing differently lately is just to make a few announcements while everyone is here in the room. So a few short things. Firstly, I wish to acknowledge and recognize the passing of two incredible Sooke women. Martha Moore, as you know, has passed recently, as well as little Hannah Day. And I find that both women had much strength and love for the community, as well as a passion for life that we see, and so just wish to recognize both of them. On brighter notes, Council is working towards conclusion of our strategic planning, and there will be a survey that will be launched out to the community as well, so we can further obtain some input on that. I'm very excited to share that we have hired a new Chief Administrative Officer, a new CAO. Norm McInnis will be joining us from the town of Fernie. And Norm was selected because he has served well in fast-growing communities that are transitioning, and we recognize also his long commitment to local government and his expertise as a Chief Administrative Officer. I do wish to thank our intern, Don Schaefer, who has served us very well since he joined our team in December. And I wish to also thank Waterhouse Executive Search for guiding us through this process. We had well over 160 applications for the position. Around 10 were shortlisted, and then Council reviewed all of those, prepared some very difficult interview questions, and then we held interviews together, and all of Council sat through and interviewed all the candidates and selected our final choice. Our role of staff throughout this whole process was to only provide administrative support as needed, so I wish to thank Carolyn Mushada for providing that to us. Recent news, we saw that the province has made a commitment towards health care, approximately $1 million annually to fund 5 different positions at our existing West Coast Medical Clinic space, as well as some needed capital improvements. Those that have followed the health planning work recognize that this is a short-term objective, and that not all the positions that we sought were funded, but we'll continue to advocate and make the case to the ministry as for those other positions. And I think some of the work that we've funded from mental health strategies and the like will help bolster that in the times to come. And then, of course, we will be moving towards our more medium-term objective, which would be co-location of all services in a purpose-built regional health facility. So still lots of work to do there. You may also have seen an ongoing debate about free transit within the region, and myself sitting on the Regional Transit Commission, I haven't received the full support, but at this point, while I really like the prospect of free transit, I'm concerned that the needed service expansion to Sooke would be sacrificed while we provide free transit, because I just don't see where the $40 million gap could be covered reasonably by property taxes. The province has already not agreed to fund transit any more than they have, and we'll have to find that gap somewhere else. So at this point, it's the fare box that is providing that. I think that we need more out here, not less. And of course, I welcome any comments. If transit as it is, if the cost of transit is a barrier to you or anyone watching this to using it, if it's too expensive, we would like to know that. Perhaps we can provide some sort of other program that would make transit more cost effective for you. But I think at this time, the service isn't running when we actually need it. Free or not, it's just a non-existent bus. And lastly, you'll see some fisheries announcements that have been made. Director Mike Hicks has been taking the lead on this, so I really appreciate his work in those efforts, and to everyone here around the table. So on that note, we'll get into our meeting tonight, and we have an agenda here in front of us. There's a significant amount of correspondence related to the CRD and the Foodlands Trust Initiative. We have received a delegation, and there's a lot in here. So I am proposing that we move that all those correspondence related to that item to the upcoming committee of the whole, which would be held on Tuesday, because I think it requires a more fulsome debate than what time will allow us for this evening. And then in terms of everything else, I think we'll just see if we can get through tonight. So on that note, a motion to approve with the exception that all items for the Food and Land Trust be moved to May 21st, 2019. Moved by Councillor St. Pierre, seconded by Councillor Beddoes. Any discussion on that? Seeing none, all those in favor, opposed, that's carried unanimously. Thank you. Okay, so we do have some resolutions here for adoption. Oh, pardon me. I'm already skipping things. Okay, so we have minutes of April 23rd regular council meeting here for adoption. Moved by Councillor Beddoes, seconded by Councillor St. Pierre. Any questions or corrections? All those in favor? Oh, Councillor Bateman.
I just have a single correction, and that's on page 11, minutes of April 23rd, 2019. Under property tax bylaw, you've listed the CRD and the Vancouver Island Library Board, but you've not stated at an average Sooke assessed value of $481,000 is what those figures relate to. So they'll be higher and lower pending your assessment.
Okay, noted. Thank you, Councillor Bateman. Okay, all those in favor of adoption? Opposed? That's carried unanimously. We have the special council meeting of April 29th here for adoption. Moved by Councillor Beddoes and seconded by Councillor St. Pierre. Any questions, corrections? See none. All those in favor? Opposed? That's carried unanimously. And we have the committee of the whole from May the 6th. So I have one, but I'll have a mover. Sure. Moved by Councillor Beddoes and seconded by Councillor St. Pierre. So within the committee of the whole minutes, there was our discussion about the council procedural bylaw and whether or not we require name and address. So my comment there was that request that the public no longer be required to state their name and address, note the neighborhood. In fact, it was just the local government that they reside. We don't need the neighborhood, was what I had actually said. So local government meaning Sooke or another, or would encompass both a municipality and regional district as well. So I don't think the neighborhood is of matter. Okay? That's what I'd said. Okay. Anything else? Okay, all those in favor of approval? Adoption, opposed, it's carried unanimously. Okay, resolutions for adoption here. Can this all be read as a block? Can we just move the whole thing? Okay. Okay, so draft council procedural bylaw that the following amendment to the proposed bylaw be made. 3116, delegations are not permitted for subject matters which will have their own opportunity for public input, i.e. grant applications, specific bylaws, etc. And that council directs staff to bring the amended bylaw back for consideration. And Councillor Bateman, you wanted to move that?
Are we going to move them as a whole?
Well, this one on the screen is what I meant. Right? Okay, moved by Councillor Bateman, seconded by Councillor Beddoes. Any further discussion on this? See none, all those in favor? Opposed, it's carried unanimously. Okay, outstanding resolutions. So here it is that the council rescind the following resolutions as they are listed here. Moved by Councillor Beddoes and seconded by Councillor St. Pierre. Any further questions? Comments from staff or council? Councillor St. Pierre.
Just a quick comment.
Microphone, please.
Just a quick comment. I would prefer if the resolutions also had some text to describe what they might refer to, because otherwise anybody looking at the minutes just isn't going to know what this is about.
Yeah, that's a good comment. Ms. Rear?
Yes, Your Worship. I just wanted to clarify that, yes, we will put what they are in the minutes section.
Okay.
They were included on the cow agenda of the May 6th, so people could refer to it, but we will include it within the minutes because it wasn't an attachment in the agenda.
Okay, that's great, because I had clicked on them looking to see if the wording was there, and it actually dials out as a phone call, so that doesn't work, but that's what happens anyway. Love technology. Okay, all those in favor of rescinding? Opposed? That's carried unanimously. And committee appointments here. Can these all be done, all these appointments be done together?
Your Worship, I would do them separately because quite often we send the resolution
Okay.
forward to the committee itself. So,
Got it, okay. So firstly, that Council appoint Councillor Ebony Logans to the Muck Treaty Advisory Committee until Councillor Brenda Parkinson is able to return. Moved by Councillor Bateman, seconded by Councillor St. Pierre. Discussion? All those in favor? Opposed? This carried unanimously. That Council appoint Councillor Al Beddoes, Councillor Megan McMath, and Councillor Tony St. Pierre to liaise on behalf of the District of Sooke with Sea Park, the Community Association, and Sooke Museum, discussion regarding adjoining lands. Moved by Councillor Logans, seconded by Councillor Bateman. Discussion? All those in favor? Opposed? That's carried unanimously. That Council appoint Councillor Tony St. Pierre as the chair to the District's Climate Change Action Committee. Moved by Councillor Bateman and seconded by Councillor Beddoes. We had some discussion of appointing more than one councillor, and my thoughts on that were, as we move through the strategic plan, I think with the need to address climate action or to take on initiatives being so pressing, the terms of reference for this committee will likely change, in which case I think we would look to add more councillors to it, and then I would be looking for a bit of a balance that we talk to a committee of the whole. But let's just get it rolling anyway, and then we can make those changes as we move on. Okay? All right, all those in favor? Opposed? And that's carried unanimously. Thank you. The next one is our 20th anniversary celebrations, and that is that the Committee of the Whole recommends Council support co-hosting a community picnic in partnership with the Sooke News Mirror on Saturday, August 17th, in conjunction with the District hosting movie night in John Phillips Memorial Park, and that Councillor Beddoes be the Council liaison for this event, and that the District of Sooke host a rock painting station. Moved by Councillor Logans and seconded by Councillor Beddoes. So for the interest of everyone here, we are looking to do a community celebration of our 20th anniversary on August 17th. So we'll run sort of from 1 o'clock, and then with different entertainment throughout the day, 9 o'clock we'll be hosting a big screen movie in the park. We don't know yet what that movie is going to be. We're going to wait closer to see what release options we can obtain, but it's meant to be a family event throughout the whole day, and we hope to see you all there. So that's been moved, I believe, and seconded. Okay, all those in favor? Opposed? That's carried unanimously. Okay. Excellent. So that moves us into our delegations for this evening, of which we have 5. So to start us off today, I would like to welcome our auditor on behalf of KPMG, from KPMG, and Ms. Julie Robinson will be making some comments on behalf of the audit. So welcome, and if you could please just turn on the microphone for us so we can all hear you. Thank you, and there's 5 minutes allocated for your presentation.
Oh.
Thank you.
Hi, I am Julie Robinson. I am with KPMG, the auditors of the District of Sooke. I would just like to report that we have finalised our audit procedures, other than the approval of the financial statements this evening. Our audit focus areas this year were general and capital expenses, and that the district appropriately adopted and implemented a number of new accounting standards. In this area and other areas, we found no significant issues to report, and with that we will be issuing a clean audit opinion. And I'd also like to take this opportunity to thank management for their support throughout the audit procedures and getting us to this stage.
Okay, thank you very much, and I'd like to acknowledge and thank Ms. Rachel Gray for all of your work on this. I know that you've had a real busy load, so many thanks to yourself and your team for rising to the occasion and dealing with both the budget and the audit sort of all at once, so, and a new council, so thank you very much for that. Okay, so on this note, any questions for Ms. Robinson from council? Councillor Bateman?
Well, it's just to be clear, it's really good news. We're in good fiscal shape,
Yes.
and
Yep,
no
no significant
glaring
control issues
Yes.
or financial changes that we had to make in this year. There is accumulated surplus there. There's no large deficits that need to be funded.
Yes. Okay. Thank you. Good.
Anything else? So move to accept the draft financial statements of the District of Sooke for the year ended December 31st, 2018 by Councillor Logans, seconded by Councillor St. Pierre. Okay, any further questions? All those in favor? Opposed? That's carried unanimously. Thank you very much. Ms. Robinson, safe travels home again. We'll see you again next year. Okay, so next I'd like to welcome the Victoria Urban Reconciliation Dialogue forward, please. And we have 5 minutes allocated for your delegation.
Hello. Hi, thank you for having us. My name is Tanya Claremont. I work at the Victoria Native Friendship Center. We're here on behalf of the Victoria Urban Reconciliation Dialogue, which is hosted by the Friendship Center. We want to acknowledge that you expressed a territorial acknowledgement upon our arrival, and we appreciate that the Council is holding up that tradition here and for our community. So very quickly, the Victoria Native Friendship Center, we act as the host for the Victoria Urban Reconciliation Dialogue. Our mandate is to encourage and promote the well-being of the urban Aboriginal population by improving the lives of the individual, the family, and the community. We're celebrating 50 years of uninterrupted service this year at our Friendship Center, and we host a multitude of activities, 51 diverse programs from prenatal to elder care, 120 staff now, I should update the slide, 38,000 square feet, 86 daycare spaces, 25 seasonal shelter beds, 3 apartment buildings, a foster home, and the only lending library in a Friendship Center in Canada. Oh, the other direction. So the Victoria Urban Reconciliation Dialogue started last March 2018. We just finished our first year of development. So the core values that we stand for are truth, justice, education, decolonization, sustainability, inclusivity. We have 3 key focuses that we're working towards: to support the urban Indigenous voice in the reconciliation dialogue, to enable community engagement across all spectrums and groups of people that reside within the Greater Victoria area, and to generate ideas for tangible action. So we are a grassroots approach to reconciliation, and so we hold ourselves accountable to the Indigenous community at large, as well as the allies that live throughout this region. This is just a brief overview of how we see the sort of structure of our dialogue happening, with accountability being to the larger community. We have an advisory panel we've been working with over the last year who gives us direction, and the steering committee who is able to do the work in between all of the dialogues to keep the conversation and the work moving forward for us. We also have a working group that dedicates to meeting on an ongoing basis to conduct all of the work that needs to be done for us. So our steering committee, our mandate is to promote collaborative reconciliation, which is led by the urban Indigenous community. And you can see our membership includes representation from 4 levels of non-Indigenous government: federal, provincial, regional, and municipal. We also have community representation with elders, artists, and professors. And we have Elder Shirley Afons with us here today. She represents herself as a cultural leader here for Sooke First Nation, but also lends the ear for our premier of our province and supports him in his efforts to reconciliation for all of us. So our terms of reference allows for expansion, and that's why we're here today, to just express that we do exist, that we are working towards reconciliation for the greater area of the South Island of Vancouver, and that we want all municipalities to understand what the opportunity is and know that there's an open door for them to come and participate. So we've hosted 7 steering committee meetings since our inaugural meeting last March 2018, 2 advisory panel gatherings, and so this is some of the informed community members that come together with us to help discuss what's happening and where we should be focusing our attention. We had 40 participants at our last November gathering, and then doubled that in February when we had 80 participants. Our working group has had 18 meetings over the last year to help move these gatherings along for everybody, and we've also made several presentations to community groups such as the Rotary Club, and also municipal presentations like this in other areas. So our central goal right now remains dialogue. There's so much to learn from each other, and there's so much to understand about the diversity that this particular community, what can we do here in this area in 2019 together with all these people at the table. And so we're still trying to express ourselves as a learning opportunity and exchange of information between all of the parties that are trying to bring reconciliation to the forefront of their work over the next few years.
Hello, everyone. My name is Patrick Harriet. I'm the president of the Métis Nation Greater Victoria, and I'm on the steering committee and working group. So basically what I'm here to say is that everyone seems to be at the table right now, from all levels of government, from education, from policing, from housing specialists. It's a very unique and interesting opportunity right now. When we get the advisory panel together, people have these conversations that normally they wouldn't be in the same room with each other. And there really is an opportunity to look at housing that affects municipalities as well as Indigenous people, look at education, look at all these different ways that we can collaborate together instead of in isolation. So I really think there's an opportunity, if you're willing to join with us, that something could happen with Sooke as well.
Okay. Thank you. I know that we received some correspondence from you, and there were members of council that were interested in attending one of the events that was held in February. It just happened to fall on the night of our council meeting, and but at least 2 or 3 people here, and that's sort of what prompted the delegation request to have. So thank you very much for taking the time and for traveling out this way. How can we stay informed, or I think you have our contact information, because I think just knowing of meeting dates in advance, I know that there's councillors, myself, that would want to partake in those. We just have to, obviously, we have to just make sure that they don't collide with the meeting date that we have.
Yeah, I'd happy. We just set our schedule for the next fiscal year. We have secured funding again for our steering committee to be able to continue meeting. So we have set the calendar for the next fiscal year. We can send that to you directly. The next meeting is going to be on May 21st. It's a Tuesday. It'll be at the Friendship Center for the day, and like we said, it is an open door. Our steering committee is an opportunity for us to meet and build partnerships and hear from people. So if there's anybody that would like to participate and be there representing Sooke, we would love to have you.
What time would that be?
We meet from 9:30 till 3.
9:30 till 3. Okay. Okay, so we'll make note of that, and then that'll allow for enough time to travel back. We have a meeting but not until the evening. So just make note. Okay. Any questions from members of council? Councillor Bateman?
Well, thank you for the work you're doing. It was good to see that Margaret Critchlow from our Sooke Reconciliation Group was at your February meeting. I saw your slideshow online.
Yeah.
And they are doing some remarkable work here locally. They've just ended their 2nd year of monthly meetings, and will begin again in the fall. And I personally look forward to joining you on one of these nights, or days, I should say. Thank you.
Anything else? Okay, thank you very much, and safe travels back home again.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, next up, I'd like to welcome Mr. Mark Ziegler with the Charter of Compassion, please. And Councillor Bateman?
Yeah, I'll need to recuse myself as I'm a member of the Sooke Region Multi-Belief Initiative.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Bateman. You'll be in the fire lounge?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yes, thank you very much, Your Worship and councillors, for allowing us to come back. We were also here on June 11th, 2018, when the councillors and the mayor unanimously and individually endorsed the Charter for Compassion itself. And since that time, we've had a couple of workshops, because what we would like to do is have Sooke recognized as a compassionate community. Sooke is a compassionate community, but we needed to have a compassionate action plan, and that reflected the sort of pressing needs, deep-rooted pressing needs in this community. So first of all, very quickly, I've only got 5 minutes, but I'd like to, I'm here really on behalf of the Sooke Multi-Belief Initiative, and I have with me Don Brown and Charla Emanuel, and so if there are questions, they can help field them. So what I was hoping tonight is that you would endorse the Compassionate Action Plan. You've already hopefully seen some documents that we sent out, and support us submitting to Charter for Compassion International a request for recognition of Sooke as a compassionate community. And there are over 400 compassionate communities in the world, and some of them are very close, like Nanaimo and Parksville and Powell River, and we would be joining them. And so The goal of the Compassionate Action Plan, sorry, I guess I should be flipping this forward here, is to recognize, encourage, and support acts of caring and kindness that address the ongoing needs in our community. And the recognition is important. There's so much already going on in Sooke in terms by many, many groups, agencies, and individuals. There's so much good work going on, and yet there are pressing, deep-rooted needs still in our community. And I don't think I need to go through the historical background, but basically we've been underway since the Sooke multi-belief initiative since about May of 2016, when the Mayor's Healthy Community Summit was held at the Sooke Community Centre, and there was a recognition that there was sort of a spiritual and ethical side to a healthy community. And we had a very good meeting back in October where we had 29 different sort of groups, volunteer groups, agencies, government agencies even, coming together with many, many individuals. There were about 50 people at the meeting to identify what the key needs were in our community. And the key needs that we came up with, well, not that we came up with, but that we identified were homelessness, affordability, and the affordability isn't just housing. Housing receives the focus, but of course, food, family care, for some people, transportation. Then there's social isolation, that, and this is for seniors and the disabled and youth, but also for people that are homeless. And then inadequate healthcare services, and this issue is being addressed. I compliment the council and Mayor Tait for the work that's being done there. And whole person care is very important. And then we also recognize the need for better communication, awareness, and collaboration, because we have all these different agencies, and to some extent they're silos. There needs to be an awareness amongst these benevolent groups and individuals, but also within the larger community of what our needs are. So we perhaps I should just go back. We had we thought we better do our homework, so we had a session that we had in March where we took this Compassionate Action Plan that was based on our meetings in October, and we called an additional group of about 25 people. We invited, it was open to the public, but we had about 25 people come, and again, Mayor Tait came, and the various councillors came, and we appreciate that. And what we found was that these issues are very, very intertwined. They're really cross-cutting issues. And that, for instance, if a homeless person, well, there's an affordability issue, of course. And then there's the social isolation, the stigma issues. And then if there's an addiction or mental health problems, then the whole person care is involved. So these, although we, in our October workshop, we kind of identified them as separate issues, it became very clear at our more recent workshop in March that these are very much cross-cutting issues. And so we, that was an important insight. And the communication, awareness, collaboration issue is a way that we can sort of weave them together and weave the different active parties together to work on that.
Mr. Ziegler, you're out of time, but do you want to just tell us?
Okay. Basically, sorry, I should let you finish. Yeah.
Sorry, if you just want, because you did send us great materials in advance, which we really appreciate. Just let us know what you need tonight.
Just if you could endorse the plan as you've received it, and if you could support us in going forward to Charter for Compassion International for recognition of Sooke as a compassionate community. And then hopefully we can announce this, and hopefully we can have on the Welcome to Sooke stone or rock, Sooke a compassionate community. I think that's important. I'm sorry I rambled on.
That's fine. Thank you for, it's nice to have the materials, so that sort of helped and it gave us a good brief there. Councillor Beddoes?
Yeah, I just want to thank you on this document. It's very well done, a very comprehensive report, very enlightening to me. I very much appreciate the work that you've done and you're doing, and I support you wholeheartedly. Thank you.
Councillor Logans?
Thank you, Mr. Ziegler, for bringing this forward, and also for everyone in the group for participating in this. It's wonderful to see it get so far. I know you started quite a while ago, and now it's a solid action plan with some exciting steps ahead. So it's great to see. One of the things I was wondering, and we can discuss later as council, but it may be interesting to see if we could have someone as a representative from this charter on some of our council committees as we roll those out. Just something for us to consider as council, inviting a representative.
The notice for the Climate Action Committee should be going out. We'll be seeking up to 10 community members for that, so hoping that someone is able to provide that to us. Councillor St. Pierre?
I'd just like to comment on your actual plan itself. It's apt, and there's a lot of initiatives that are actually ongoing and in the pipes, and our strategic plan actually does reflect a lot of what's there, so certainly does seem that Sooke is a compassionate community, whether we want to be or not, so that's good. And looking forward to working with you on this.
If I could just respond to that, the May 1st issue of the Sooke News Mirror made me very happy. So many wonderful things going on, healthcare, affordable housing, etc. And I'd like to also recognize very quickly the help that we received from Transition Sooke. And it's our hope that perhaps in the official community plan there could be a small appendix to do with our Compassionate Action Plan.
Excellent. Okay. So there is a drafted resolution, and that is that Council endorse the Sooke Compassionate Action Plan as presented and support the recognition of Sooke as a compassionate community. And I would just add something and further that this plan be forwarded to our Housing Committee as well as the Climate Action one for their information. Because it does touch on some of the
I'm just thinking,
items
is that
here.
all of the committees, or would there be more that it would be applicable to?
There will be more, but those are only the two that are live right now. So I just don't want to see us have it go into a file box. I think at least if it goes towards the two committees that are going right now, and then as we roll on to other work, it can then blend into that. So this way it can immediately shift somewhere. Okay, so moved by Councillor Logans and seconded by Councillor St. Pierre. Anything further from members of council? Thank you very much, Mr. Ziegler. Or I'll call the question. All those in favor? Opposed? Is carried unanimously. Thank you very much, Mr. Ziegler and Mr. Brown, for all of your work and for continuing to drive ahead with these matters. Okay, we'll have Councillor Bateman returned. And while he is returning, I'd like to invite Ms. Tricia Pincombe to the table, please. Let's just give I don't want the councillor to miss any of your presentation. There we go. Welcome back. Okay, and if you could please just turn on the microphone. There's just a button at the base of the stem there, and there's 5 minutes for your delegation. Welcome, ladies.
Great. Thank you so much for having me. Today I'm here to tell you about something that I'm very passionate about. I have run a Montessori preschool for the past 15 years at Casinos Elementary. Due to the high enrollment at the elementary level, our contract will not be renewed this fall. When I started 15 years ago, I was given the option as to what elementary school I wanted to rent from, and I chose Casinos. It was a quiet little school with several empty classrooms. During that time, I had to advertise and sell people on the idea of Montessori preschool with an art and educational base. Today, I have no advertising, and I also have a lengthy wait list. Currently, my school has 26 children. We offer 18 spaces at Casinos in one classroom, and I have a group of 8 half-day children on our property located on Kaltassan Road. 2 years ago, I bought that property in hopes to one day have the preschool there completely, as I could see the growth in Sooke climbing at a very fast rate. The house on Kaltassan was built in 2016. It is a rancher on an acre of land. The house easily offers space for 16 children under Island Health legislation. And at the time of getting my license, my licensing officer questioned why I didn't apply for more spaces. Unfortunately, with our current bylaws, we were only able to take 8 children at a time. I presume this bylaw was created when the necessity for childcare was not like it is today, and it supported family childcare ventures. I have noticed in the OCP community residential J, it reads, encourage the creation of childcare facilities in residential areas. I do not see anything related to the policy or the action with this in mind. I'm here today to ask the municipality of Sooke to create policy and action by adding childcare into the uses for large lots, as this will solve the problem we have for Sooke Montessori. John Horgan says BC is in a childcare crisis. Why are there so few centers? For me, it's because the profit margin does not support the application for rezoning in Sooke. I did venture that route. John Horgan's office replied to my email when I sent them my concern, as this is a municipal issue and each municipality makes these rules. So I investigated and found that other municipalities do have childcare in their uses for RU4 lots. Langford is one of them. Families are having to drive their children to Langford for daycare, as finding a space here can be impossible at times. I have met families that live and work in Sooke, but they must drive to Langford for childcare. Not great for our carbon footprint. I get calls and emails from people wanting to move to Sooke from out of province, and the one thing holding them back is securing space and a quality childcare facility. By simply adding childcare into these uses of large RU4 lots, childcare spaces will open up in Sooke, not just at my center. Parents will have more options and more choice for care. Childcare facilities will still need to be governed by Island Health. I have an enormous checklist and legislation to adhere to that includes fire inspection, water, and septic approval. With childcare added to the uses, this will allow me to offer 2 classrooms of 16, as my lot supports 2 houses. Some spaces will be for full-time care, and I will reserve some for half-day care. Most centers are being forced to only offer full days, as it makes more money, and unfortunately this takes preschool-style options away from families. It will also allow my dream of offering a hobby farm for the children to enjoy. A beautiful outdoor play area with gardens close enough to the ocean for walking adventures. I will employ a minimum of 4 staff. I have enough room for on-site parking, and the neighbors support my efforts. Today I have 26 families and 3 staff that will be displaced, as viable childcare space for me to move to currently does not exist in Sooke. Other childcare centers in Sooke cannot support my closure by taking on my families and staff. So I ask that you treat this as an emergency. We can have this granted today. We can have these spaces open for September. Parents can have more options, and it supports the residential growth in Sooke. Please support my efforts, as this will support reducing carbon emissions, giving parents choice, supports the Sooke live, work, and play, job creation, high-quality childcare, neighborhood revitalization, support for residential growth, and keeping the childcare costs down, and of course supporting my family business. Thank you so much for your time.
Okay, thank you very much, Ms. Pincombe, for your presentation today and for inviting us down to visit your schoolhouse. Councillor Beddoes.
Yeah, I actually went down and talked to Ms. Pincombe, and I had a look at her facility down there, and I was very much impressed. Her proposal, although it gets complicated with our procedures, it would be a net benefit to our community by far. I also talked to Ms. Campbell, staff, and understood the process that they all had to go through to get to this thing, and it is, pretty standard. The staff has responded in the way they should. They have to follow the rules and dot the I's and cross the T's. I'm struggling to find some sort of a method other than blanketing RR4 to allow for these types of operation, because it affects so many. I'm hoping that with staff and council that we could find some way to make this happen if we can, because I think those positions for daycare are essential to our community, and it's unfortunate that it's got to this stage and the timing is such. But it's a tough situation to be in for us and for the applicant here. So that's my comments on it, and I'm hoping we could find some middle ground here. Thank you.
Councillor St. Pierre.
I think that we should be supporting local businesses as much as possible, including, obviously, childcare, daycare spaces in residential neighborhoods where people can actually walk their families to the local daycare are essential. That reduces our carbon footprint, not just for Ms. Pincombe, but for anybody who wants it. I'm in favor of having some good research and some good work done by our staff towards doing a blanket arrangement so that people who wish to have this sort of arrangement don't have to pay the cost for rezoning, because that doesn't make it any easier for people to start their new businesses. I would suggest that in this particular case, we may have a situation where a temporary use permit could actually allow your daycare to start operating immediately and for you to actually move in that direction while we actually change the rules so that that can be allowed for everybody.
It's a good point, Councillor Bateman, and then I'll see if staff can comment. I'll get comments from the councillor first. Go ahead.
Yes, I had a visit today as well, and you know, these Montessori schools are something rather unique and special, and there's an urgency here. I was going to recommend a site-specific zoning amendment to allow this Montessori school to continue. However, Councillor St. Pierre's comment around the temporary use permit seemingly makes a lot of sense. I'll defer to the professionals to see which is the best. But we need to get this school running by September. And interestingly, you know, when I was visiting, the kids from Casinos were out for a walk, and their nature kindergarten program and what Montessori offers is consistent with this new way of education. Not that Montessori is all that new, but it's so yeah. That's my comment.
I'll just ask for staff just for some comment on either site-specific or temporary use.
Your Worship, a temporary use permit is intended to be used for industrial properties, so it's problematic to try to apply one to a residential area. Now that's, I believe, enshrined in the Local Government Act and would be very difficult for us to change here. Given direction from Council, we could bring back a report for potentially the next Council meeting or the one after that, to depending on what's on the table. As you know, there's an extensive list of issues that are facing the Planning Department right now. That said, if Council wishes to prioritize this, we would deal with it as best we can. The temporary use permit doesn't necessarily present itself as a viable solution for us, unfortunately.
And that's because the temporary use, it's not necessarily district, it's enshrined in the Local Government Act. Okay. I'm feeling a sense of urgency with this because what's happening within our school district, as I understand it from talking to the school board chair, is that Casinos, like our elementary schools, Poye, Sooke Elementary, John Muir, are hitting capacity. So what's happening is Casinos is becoming the overflow. So some families may choose to move into a neighborhood, say they want to go to Poye or to Sooke Elementary and move into that neighborhood because thinking that would be their catchment. But because the schools are full and overflowing into portables, then those new children are moved to Casinos instead, and in which case they have to bus or then drive. And the fact that you've been given notice means that there's a surge in more students. They're forecasting more students coming to Casinos in the fall. Not necessarily from just residents who live in that particular area, but residents all over Sooke that are moving here. There's families moving everywhere. So even though you may choose to live near the John Muir district, your child will end up going to Casinos, which is unfortunate because then you have to bus or drive or travel and get there. But that's what is happening. There's been while Sooke is shortlisted for new elementary schools, that expansion is not happening. All of the capital expansion is happening in Langford at the moment because they have so many there. And what we hear is that every year, even though they forecast and families still show up on the first day of school, trying to get their child into that particular school. So and then with daycare, I completely understand what that is like, just through my own experience in terms of, in some cases you're lucky, this daycare will have space and take you, which is great. The downside then is that parents have no options. So if it doesn't fit with family values or scheduling or time, location, that's just too bad, because it's not like there's plenty of options available. And we don't hear a lot about daycares because there is advertising. I think if someone were to advertise, we have space, they'd be overwhelmed with calls, because everyone I know has a wait list, and you can only take, it's like our medical clinic, you can only take a wait list of so many people before it just becomes unmanageable. And it's a problem. And the other challenge in speaking with, well, we heard a bit of this at AVIC, is that there are not a large amount of early childhood educators available either. So my concern is also that we then potentially lose the talent. You open up the space, and then there's no one to work, and that's a challenge that's also happening as other places are building in centers and the like. They aren't able to open to full capacity because they don't have the educators available to work and take on the kids. So it's a problem that I really feel we need to find a way to solve, because we're hearing the 26 families will be without 4 staff that live and work here will be commuting elsewhere. We may potentially lose them and not have them available as we go through our process, which means we may then eventually come up with the zoning fix, and then we don't have the human resource component, which is difficult. And also, I think there's going to be a lot more families left without options. And I know that we're all doing our own internal child needs analysis, which is sort of one step in a longer process. But I'm just wondering how we can solve this. So I'll turn this over to Ms. Campbell.
Thank you, Your Worship, Council. Staff does recognize this is a very urgent matter. Even half of us also have kids in daycare. Mine I have to take to Colwood. My husband works in Victoria because we couldn't find anything here in Sooke. So I do appreciate the struggles, and I do understand she offers a great program. It would be staff's preference to wait until our needs assessment is done and to actually not just look at RU4, but all of our residential districts, not just necessarily ones of in an acreage and size, but corner lots in some of our smaller residential areas, and have a more fulsome discussion and analysis of that. There's recently been a rezoning on Sooke Road that a daycare is now under construction. There's another one pending just up Church Road that will be rezoning to the P2 zone to allow to convert a home to a daycare. I mean, so there are people that have just recently gone through the process and are about to go through the process. So I'm not sure the appropriateness of treating this one specific one as an emergency, with the exception of the fact that there will be displacement. But that's council's decision. If you wanted to direct staff to do an RU4 specific amendment, we would have to come forward with a bylaw for you. It doesn't negate the requirement on that specific site to address MOTI's needs for a transportation impact assessment. So if the district were to be initiating that rezoning, who is covering the costs for those things? And we lose the opportunity to get road dedication as well on that property if it's not rezoned.
Okay, thank you, Ms. Campbell. Councillor Logans?
Thank you, Ms. Campbell. I did share similar concerns with other daycares going through the rezoning process, and also with our, I guess, not quite alignment with this issue, because we're just a bit, I think you're just a bit ahead of our schedule. But I wanted to know, if I may, through staff, or through you to staff, if we did want to bring this item to the next agenda, like being aware of tonight's 500-page agenda, and knowing that some of these items may be moved to the next agenda, what items are set for the next agenda that may be delayed if we're adding this onto our limited planning resources?
Through your worship to Councillor Loggins, we do have the RFP that closed for the child care needs assessment coming to the May 27th meeting for awarding to a specific proposal consultant. There also is, I don't have the whole list of draft agenda items, but we have about 3 or 4 items coming to that meeting. I guess it depends on the extent of what you're asking for. If it's an amendment just to RU4, we could bring a draft bylaw to that meeting. That would be a very brief report, and it would be completely based on your direction, so there wouldn't require any research or anything. It's just coming from you telling us to do it. It doesn't address the studies that would be required for that site specific. It just allows the use in RU4. So a development permit would still be needed, which then would instigate the need for traffic impact assessment by MOTI.
Right, and then that doesn't address other zones that may need to be changed as well once we get information from the RFP proponent.
Correct,
Right.
but that could come later, I suppose.
Yeah, and I guess that's my only other concern is what are we overlooking without having that knowledge in advance?
Councillor St. Pierre?
Through your worship, just to confirm, so a bylaw could be brought forward that would make changes to the RU4 designation so that daycare is not just for Ms. Pinkum, but anybody else who had that particular zoning could actually open up daycares, opening up new spots within the district and so on and so forth. And as the assessment comes in, as the child care assessment report comes in, we could potentially make amendments to this particular bylaw that would already be in place to actually bring it in alignment with the new information.
Through your worship, that's correct. You can make amendments at any time.
So if we were to, in a sort of a dictatorial fashion, order staff to produce such a bylaw, it wouldn't actually allow us, it wouldn't be causing us to backtrack. I mean, we fully expect the child care assessment to let us know that we need more child care in all sorts of areas. It might pinpoint specific types of child care and so on and so forth, but we already know the house is on fire. We're just really trying to find out the best exits. We already know that the RU4 might be one possibility and probably is, given our situation here. Is that...
Through your worship, yes, at your leisure, you may dictate to staff to do whatever you'd like.
I feel the power.
Okay. It's still a majority resolution. It's ours. But yeah, we direct staff through resolution. In terms of the needs assessment, because I announced that on behalf of the UBCM, and part of it also was daycare in rural communities is very different than it is in urban centers. And BC, like it's a provincial program, has people living in very resource-related areas. There's somewhere like Bella Bella where there's nothing urban close by. Many families choose to homeschool, but there's still a need for childcare. In other more urbanized centers, you may find a need for more Saturday and Sunday care. Shift workers and the like work different. So some centers have responded to that, and some are still in a more traditional case. But what the Minister Chen in particular, is hearing is that family really need options, and sometimes they're signing up all over the place. Now it's different, but there's still a big pressure here. So the needs analysis was meant to capture all of that, and then right now, the initiative by the province is funding of infant and toddler spaces, so very young children. And then I've been saying, because I see my child growing, okay, well, what are you doing about before and after school care? Because I know that is another problem that is coming our way in our community. And all the funding right now is targeted on smaller kids. So what about older children that are still not able to stay at home? So that's where that's been their priority, and now the needs analysis will help flush that out. So hopefully what we will see is more funding streams and more options be available to everyone as they start to attack this problem. And then what is the challenge with $10 a day care? In some cases, it's the inability to hire quality staff, and that's another approach then that the ministry will be looking to solve. But right now, so that's just the needs analysis. I'm kind of rambled about that. Councillor Beddoes.
I certainly... I see a need for action and quick action. I am a little bit reluctant to amend RU4 unless there's some, I'm looking at Langford's bylaw, and a group of daycare limited to capacity 36 children is permitted on lots with areas greater than 1,099 square meters. I mean, if something like that can be put in, my concern is that we just blanket RU4 and allow daycares. There's some areas of town where that is just not acceptable to residential areas. This location I don't have any problem with, so I'm a little concerned about that.
Okay, Councillor Logans?
Thank you. I sort of echo what Councillor Beddoes states. I feel like there may be more low-hanging fruit than we think, and it would be prudent to acquire a report from staff that has information on what other things we can tackle all at once. I wouldn't want to be hasty and just say tonight, like, let's just, without any background information, let's get this done. Because I think we do need to educate ourselves a little more on what else we can accomplish at the same time, and hopefully get that done quickly.
Okay, so Councillor St. Pierre, and then go ahead.
Wondering if a motion might be appropriate in terms of getting a report from staff that could be discussed in the next committee of the whole to go over this more carefully with some alternatives and some different possible solutions.
So it's a turnaround for next Tuesday.
Okay, maybe the next after that?
Well, I think it's the case. What we have here is that Council directs staff to write a report on options regarding land use and child care operations for the May 27, June 10 regular council meeting.
Okay.
So at least that would get the ball rolling. We're seeing an option here, and then I think it'll allow us time to talk a bit more about if we did the RU4, like Councillor Beddoes said, I was just trying to Google what 1,099 square meters is, and it's 0.272 of an acre, if this is correct. So if that's their limitation, like, that's still very small in comparison, right? Like, it's only 0.27 is that square meters. And so this is a much larger section of land than that is. And of course we have parcels of land that are significantly larger than that. But just because the use is provided also doesn't mean that everyone is going to do it. They're not going to all just suddenly open everywhere. That might solve child everywhere, but I just don't see everyone with, when you look at the uses of property that are permitted on a piece of property, not everyone chooses to do those things. Like, I could do daycare, family daycare. It's certainly not something I'm qualified to do in my house. Councillor St. Pierre.
Ms. Pinko, my understanding from what you were saying before is that there are a number of regulations that you operate under regardless of anything that comes from the district.
Oh, yes.
Are some of them addressing, for example, the size of the property that can be used and other things that we're actually discussing as potentially our jurisdiction, but that's already covered under other regulations?
You do need to have a certain size area for them to play outside. You need to have, like, per number of children you have. You need to have certain size square footage in your house. So there's a lot of regulations to follow. I think, yeah, not necessarily municipal ones, though. No, just going towards, you have to get a fire safety check. They come and check and make sure your septic is approved. That would be something that would stop every person from opening a child care center, because you'd have to have a septic system large enough to handle a community size, which is something that you'd have in a church or school grounds. That's why these places aren't popping up everywhere, because it's tricky and it's expensive.
Ms. Campbell, I think you had your hand up.
For council's benefit, the RU4, which her property is zoned, has a minimum lot size of 1 hectare. So generally, in terms of size of property, RU4 wouldn't be so much an issue. But there are RU4 lots in Sooke that are zoned RU4 but are much smaller than that, like quite a bit for some, and that's a mystery I'm yet to solve, but to some historical remnant. So it begs the question of what Councillor Beddoes was mentioning: is it appropriate in all RU4? I also want to just point out the motion is not specific to RU4. So if there is a report you're wanting us to write more on a grander issue, June 10th isn't even going to be possible.
Okay, so I think what we were looking, what I'm sensing is council appreciates the urgency of this in childcare in general. We'd like to see if there's some way we can resolve this. The Ministry of Transportation is continuing to examine traffic in that area as well, so in terms of what they're going to do. So, you know, and I get that even still, there's still some criteria that need to be met, but that whole area itself is changing just with some of the activities that are occurring there. So I'm sensing, though, like we want to make sure that we follow process in a fair and consistent manner. It's just the challenge that I have is that because our planning and our documents are so dated, this is where the growth piece is sort of kicking us to, you know, it may seem we're acting in haste, but with the growth and dated documents that don't reflect current population and future and knowing what's happening with the schools, I'm feeling a need to act and find a way to resolve this, because I don't want to see these families and many more displaced. So I think this is where we just need to, okay, we've added in the RU4, and so that's where it's like, what can we do in this situation here? And then I think the needs analysis will roll out, OCP planning, zoning, and the like will follow, and I know that those are things, but I just think that, like affordable housing, like the need for more rentals, this is another thing that, you know, really, when the zoning bylaw was rewritten within a year of the last one that was adopted, it's unfortunate it didn't get captured at that time. It should have been, knowing that the growth was happening. And all the growth, the way the development's been planned to encourage more families and suites and to be affordable, well, of course, everyone's going to move here, and now we don't have the services that they need. Okay, so is this specific enough? Okay, so looking for council to move that motion. Moved by Councillor St. Pierre and seconded by Councillor Beddoes, that council direct staff to write a report on options regarding childcare operations in RU4 zones for the May 27th or June 10th regular council meeting. Anything further on that? Seeing none, all those in favor? Opposed? That's carried unanimously. Okay, thank you. And Ms. Pincombe, we can connect with you when we know what date that report's on, because it would be helpful to get some further feedback from you.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Okay, next up we have float home restrictions and a presentation from Jody Webb.
Thank you.
Oh.
Just go.
Ms. Hartley?
Hi, I'm Jody Hartley.
Okay, if you want to just wait like a minute while some folks are clearing the room so we can hear. Okay, welcome, and
Hi.
Please go ahead. We have 5 minutes on the timer for you.
Okay. Good evening, Mayor Tait and Council. Thank you for allowing me today the opportunity to present regarding the possible amendment of current bylaws, zoning codes W1, 2, 3, 4, 6, and 7, and specifically 701.3 in passive recreation, 702.3 in private wharfs, 703.3 in marina, 704.3 in group moorage, and finally 705.3 in marine industry, all of which include specifically prohibited uses, residential use of structures, floats, and piles. My attempt for tonight is to present to you how amendment to the above bylaws by allowed usage of residential float homes will enhance the Sooke community. How residential use of float home complements all three of the main goals and meets most of the 12 directions of the Sooke community plan currently underway for the future of the Sooke community. There are 26 registered float home communities in British Columbia currently, half of which are currently right here on Vancouver Island. With this many current float communities supported by the province as well as municipalities across Vancouver, there's a plethora of pre-existing provincial regulations and municipal bylaws which protect our natural environments and waterways. Current bylaws and provincial regulations correct previous concerns and issues regarding float homes that occurred without long-term concerns for the environment. I'm just trying to say that previously there were float homes that kind of existed and they kind of went under the radar, and then communities really stepped in and said, you know, we need to make these better, we need to make sure they're responsible, and we need to engage these communities in utilizing and protecting our environments. Before I present, I'd like to introduce myself. My name is Jody, and I relocated here to Sooke this past November from our flatland neighbors to the east, and more specifically the whiteout capital city of Winnipeg, Manitoba. But Sooke is not new to me. Rather, I visited here 20 years ago with my children when they were 2 and 4 years old with their father. And the adventure began as a camping trip from northwestern Ontario with the intention of only spending one night per location until we got here to Sooke. And we stayed 4 lovely days. We camped in a community campground and included walks along the Whiff and Spit. In the fog and rain, we ate several meals at Mom's Diner and had the opportunity to go aboard a tall ship that was parked here in the basin. Sooke was absolutely perfect then, and we did not want to leave. So fast forward 20 years, and I've returned to Sooke. To its peacefulness and serenity, this time arriving to make it my forever home and community. So far, I have my library card. I'm a Legion member. I reduce, reuse, recycle. I shop and dine locally and spend my time on our trails here and further up the Pacific Marine Trail. I attend and support and participate in the Saturday market, bottle drives, the awareness film nights that are offered just down the road, as well as I'm involved with the Truth and Reconciliation meetings that occur, and I've been to several of those. So I have so far engaged in my community in 6 short months that I've been here. I have arrived at the time in my life where I need to lessen my footprint to go off-grid, reduce my big bank mortgage, and blend respectfully. Oh my gosh, I'm out of time. Anyways, so basically, a float home community here does fit with the 3 big goals that we're looking at as far as moving forward with Sooke and this further strategic plan. It also fits with fits in with a lot of the 12 key plans. Planning for future generations, designing green definitely, celebrating our culture, which is the fishing community, and oceanside living with a float home community, keeping Sooke affordable. And I'm done. Okay, so
Thank you.
Basically what I'm asking for is that the amendments occur that would allow float homes in the communities here, just lifting the restrictions that restrict living, and I would plan to live off-grid, so there wouldn't be a lot of demands on the infrastructure here already. Many of the float home communities in the province of British Columbia have hooked up to sewer, water, and hydro right down at the marina, but I'm willing to ensure that mine would be off-grid completely. Compostable toilet, solar, just a pump out once in a while for the grey water.
Okay.
Thank you for your time.
So thank you very much for the presentation. I think it sort of opens the door to a lot of interesting possibilities on how we can reconnect with our marine waters. Once upon a time, many derived a living off of it, and now it seems in some ways we've built away from it, and we don't realize the potential is there. I think there's a possibility that we could address this through the OCP, our official community planning documents, and then look at zoning. It's not that I'm not interested in it, it's just some things that we also have to look at is where, in terms of wastewater or gray water collection, how is that collected and where? We don't have sewer services available everywhere in the community, so really, where would make the most sense? And then how would our fire department respond properly should the need to? They don't have a boat is the only thing, so that's something that when we've had challenges with vessels in the water, it's relying on volunteerism from the community to get our department out there. But that is a reality. If there was any sort of health issue or anything, and potentially not for you, but for others that would want to do the same, can we access and address that in a way that's safe and reasonable given the resources that we have? So I think in some ways we just need to, I really appreciate the idea, but I just want to turn to councillors. So Councillor Logans, recognize you, yep. Then Councillor St. Pierre.
Thank you. I echo what you did say. Thank you for bringing this forward because it's something that we've briefly discussed at our housing committee as well, and hopefully something that comes out of the research that we do around housing in our community as a potential option. One thing I would be concerned about is that we would absolutely need to engage the Sooke First Nation in this. They have a major concern about additional human impact to the native shellfish.
Can I just let you know that I don't mean to interrupt, but I did actually send an email out of respect for their territory prior to attending this meeting.
Yes, so we would have to have council-to-council discussions on what that impact would look like and what policy decisions would have to be made around that because they are concerned about the impact on the native shellfish and the overall health of the basin. So that's one thing we would have to do. One consideration for council is to refer this both to the Climate Change Action Committee and also Housing Committee for further discussion.
Thank you, Councillor Logans. Councillor St. Pierre.
Well, Councillor Logans has already said most of what I might have said, strangely enough. But I would add to that I actually think that float home communities, along with various other options in terms of affordable housing, are needed critically in our community, and honestly, most other communities across the world in BC.
Yeah.
So I fully support trying to find best practices and trying to make this happen as quickly as possible. But we have to actually make sure it's done right so that we don't actually foul our waters or otherwise mess things up.
Yeah.
In addition, I do believe that having float home communities or neighborhoods would actually help revitalize our ocean front, which is actually really critical. One of the things that we've noted is that our waterfront isn't actually used because there's no one there. Mm-hmm. Automatically having people there would start drawing people there. There's a synergy that could happen there that I'd love to see happen. So I'm very interested in your information, your proposal, and I'm glad you've come forward.
Okay, Councillor Beddoes.
Yeah, I have a lot of reservations actually, but basically the concept is interesting, but there's a lot of things have to be taken into account here. You mentioned sewer, power. What about those people that have built their homes for a nice waterfront view and then they have a cluster of houses to look at? So this would have to be looked at in depth. There may be some areas that it would fit, but unfortunately our staff we pretty much beat them to the bone now for doing things for us, and I'd be very reluctant to give them any more things to deal with. But I think we do file it and put it into the longer term committees to look at. There may be at some location somewhere, but we do have to move very, very carefully on this. I think there'd be provincial regulations would not be very forthcoming that a boat out there has a composting toilet and no way of checking whether it's working or not. So to me, if they did have float homes, they would have to be hooked to sewer, they'd have to hook to power, they'd have to be accessible for our fire department, which is a whole host of problems. Not that they can't be overcome, and we should certainly look at that. But I don't think it's going to happen anytime soon unless we free up some more staff. And right now, our staff is up to their eyeballs and things. So, just my comment.
But I think we can start with a discussion at the committees. Councillor Bateman?
Yeah, I just wanted to add to what everyone said and go back to your comment with this OCP review coming up soon. It will be incumbent on you, Ms. Hartley, to keep this idea alive, bring it forward into all the various opportunities, and if indeed it comes to you'll be able to address committees and just keep this thing happening, because it's a lively idea, and Sooke's evolving. So if not in the immediate future, down the road a little bit.
Thank you very kindly.
Okay, so I'll look for a motion then that Council refer the topic of float home communities to the Affordable Housing Committee and Climate Action Committees for further discussions. Moved by Councillor St. Pierre and seconded by Councillor Logans. Anything further on the motion? Seeing none, I'll call a question. All those in favor? Opposed? That's carried unanimously. Thank you very much, and we look forward to hearing from you again.
Thanks very
Thank you.
kindly. Have a wonderful evening.
And you as well. Thank you.
And welcome to Sooke.
And welcome back to Sooke, actually. Welcome back to Sooke. Okay, so moving into Section 8, we have here, so just for that, what is on the screen here for Councillor Logan's is alternate to, but you're already an alternate on the Wanda Fuqua Water Distribution Committee, are you not, Councillor Logan's? Okay, so I don't feel that that motion is needed because Councillor Logan's is already the current alternate, unless we've not. I thought we did that on, I don't know. That was confirmed. That's been confirmed, okay. So the other one then would be Councillor Parkinson is the alternate to Councillor Beddoes for Sea Park and an alternate to myself as she's a CRD board alternate. So now Councillor Bateman is filling in as CRD alternate and will be attending Sea Park in that capacity. However, I'm wondering if we need an alternate then to Councillor Beddoes. Should Councillor Beddoes be unavailable and Councillor Parkinson is unavailable, then there may not be a councillor available at Sea Park. Do we need to add someone, or I don't know. I think this was one of the ones that at the committees that when we were like, are we missing anything? So do you have any planned absences, Councillor Beddoes? I guess, well, life happens, right?
Well, I wasn't feeling too well this morning. I'm feeling a lot better now. I think we're okay as it is. There's going to be somebody from, whether you're the CRD rep or the council rep, there's going to be somebody from council sitting on that board at any given time. Whether if I'm not available to chair it, we do have a vice chair.
Yeah.
So that's not a problem. But if you're not there, Jeff's going to be there.
That's correct.
Or Brendan's going to be. So we'll always have somebody there, and it's a pretty relaxed environment. So I think we're fine.
Okay.
If Councillor Bateman is on there, I'm more than happy to.
Mr. Schaefer?
Your Worship, I discussed this issue really briefly last Wednesday, I believe, with Mr. Kanoki from Sea Park, and it's his, it's the Secretary's opinion that a further alternate should be appointed so that if, I mean, the permutations are endless, right? But that it would be profitable potentially to appoint Councillor Bateman as the alternate to Councillor Beddoes, just in case he can't attend, and Councillor Parkinson can.
Okay, so that would be what it is. So, right, okay, so then that would be that, that'll be the change then, that Council appoint Councillor Jeff Bateman as either an alternate representative to Councillor Brenda Parkinson or as a second alternate to Sea Park. You're comfortable with that, Councillor Bateman? Okay. All right, so
I'll be there.
Okay.
I'll show up.
I hope Councillor Bateman knows that there's a meeting this Thursday.
I do. I'll be attending on behalf of the mayor.
yes, so Councillor Bateman is attending this Thursday as I'm at UBCM. Yeah. So that, we've discussed all of that. Okay, so motion please, Councillor St. Pierre and seconded by Councillor Beddoes. All those in favor? Opposed is carried unanimously, and I think we're good. Okay, so looking for item 9 is our public question and comment period. So at this point, I'd like to invite any members of the public that would like to share some thoughts on any item of tonight's agenda. And we just need your first and last name, please. And if you wish to share the municipality that you live in, that would be nice too, but not required. Yes, if you could please come forward and turn on the microphone. There's also a sheet tape there that has sort of name and address, and that's because our staff are recording, so if they just want to get the proper spelling of your name if it's not clear.
Okay, I'm Carrie Coleman, and I live in Sooke in Sun River.
Okay.
I'm currently employed by Sooke Montessori. I moved here 2 years ago from Central Saanich. I've been in ECE for 17 years, and I'm concerned that if this doesn't happen, I have 2 kids. We go to Sooke Elementary. My kids are involved in hockey in Sooke, baseball in Sooke, music in Sooke. I'm part of the community as well, that if this doesn't happen, I will not have a job, or Sooke will lose a very high-quality center. So with all this talk that I hear here, hoping for September, my question is, will we have jobs, or do we need to start looking outside of Sooke for other places? There's no places to work out here for ECEs, and we bring a lot. We're hard to find, and I just want to put it out there that it says it's an emergency, but I don't feel like council treats it as an emergency for the people that live here, their families, everything that goes on here. I'm just trying to figure out where I go from here, because the next council meeting doesn't really help all of us that are stuck in the middle of the situation. So.
Thank you, Ms. Coleman. I totally thank you for sharing your perspective on this. It's very welcomed and appreciative. I think what council is doing is just making sure that we follow a process correctly. And when we do something in haste, even though it's for a well-intended cause, it usually means a bigger problem erupts somewhere that we have to jump on and fix, and it ends up setting the initial problem. It creates a bigger problem, even though at the time we think we're solving it by, let's say, putting gasoline on a fire, thinking it's water, and then it turns into something much bigger that we need to fix process-wise. So that's where it's always the case of, and it's just from my experience of being here 10 years, when we have a delegation and we move something, within a couple of weeks, there's a problem that has erupted from acting in that way. I feel around the table here that council does feel that this is something we need to get on top of. So process-wise, that's why we have the report coming, so that we have something to stand on and that we get some details from our staff, and then we can learn from that how we can remedy and fix it. And it gives us time just to research and talk to some other people. We also have to be seen as not aiding one business or one landowner and favoring that person over another, because then that has another impact. So by you speaking, I totally understand and appreciate where you're coming from, but there is a process, and although it seems that we're moving very slowly, we're not.
Okay. I just hope that it's put as an emergency. I know there's other centers in this community that may not have all the same things as well, and commercial, all this different land, where Sooke is behind,
yes.
It seems. You go to Central Saanich, you go to Victoria, you go to Langford, they have all these multitudes of centers, and good quality centers are hard to find. So
we completely agree with you. It's just making sure that we move forward as quickly as we can in respect to, it's the process. So we're actually moving quite quickly. Councillor Logans, even though it doesn't seem that way.
I just want to quickly address my negativity towards it, because I know I was very hard about doing things the right way. And it is, just as Mayor Tait suggested, I personally have PTSD from moments where we've just on a whim said, yes, this is the right thing to do, and we do it. And it ends up being absolutely horrendous for the community. We don't know that that's going to be the case this time, but to make informed decisions for the greater community is so extremely important, because it does affect your life and it affects many other lives. So I just wanted to be clear that while I did come across as very hard about the rules, and there's definitely very important reasons for that, to make sure that we get the best outcome for you and your families.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you for speaking. Other speakers tonight?
Good evening. My name is Christy Herling. I was born and raised in Sooke, and I'm raising my family here now. I just wanted to speak as well about the impact of the Montessori school and can speak to my experience as a parent and as a member of the community. I'm a family doctor here in Sooke, and I see people all the time who are having difficulty finding childcare. You know, I'll see somebody that comes in for a well-child appointment, and I'll ask them, what are your plans when you go back to work? What are you going to do with your kids? And often the response is, I don't know. Personally, my 3-year-old attends the Montessori school, and if it is no longer able to take her, we will have to go to Machosen in order to have her continue her education through Montessori. That's going to mean 2 hours of our day. That means 2 hours less practice for me every day, which is 10 to 12 patients that I can't see every day. And so I think that, I understand totally the process and what goes on here, but I think that the impact of losing 26 families that are getting care right now is going to be huge for our community when we need more, not less. That's all.
And we need you to be working those hours as well. Thank you, as well as others in the community. So thank you very much for sharing that perspective. Councillor Beddoes?
Yeah, to both our presenters in the last few minutes, we got the message. Believe it or not, this is lightning fast for a council to move it the way we are. I know it may not be quite to your liking, but we do have to have some input from staff. But we hear you, we hear the citizens and your concerns, and we will get something resolved on this in a fairly quick order. So thanks for your presentations, and we're on it.
Hello, my name is Jennifer Craig. I just wanted to, we kind of forgot to give the papers, not that we need to reinforce the urgency, but there's signatures. I don't know if we can just pass that to you. And then there was just a letter from a parent that couldn't come who's a counselor of children and just wanted to make sure that her voice was heard. So I'd like to do that. And I myself am the other staff member that's wondering about my job in September. And I just wanted to ask the question that I guess I'm trying to figure out from your conversation, is there a way to grant just that one property that for like 1 year or something like that till all that process goes? Not necessarily today, but is that a process that can be talked about for the next meeting? Or is, because I wasn't sure if you guys...
Ms. Campbell? I'm sorry, I didn't catch your name.
Jennifer Craig.
Okay, thank you, Ms. Craig.
So through your worship, that what you're suggesting is a temporary use permit, and we did review that option with the owner of the Montessori when she was first submitted her zoning application.
Okay.
And she doesn't meet the criteria.
Okay.
A temporary use permit is for industrial to commercial or commercial to industrial, and it's zoned residential. The proposal for rezoning was to go to a zone that allows for the community care, which staff would generally have supported. It just required some technical review, and those require reports from professionals. Fortunately, she had bought it 2 years ago, I believe you mentioned.
Yeah.
So normally a zoning application takes 6 months in Sooke. Having waited to this close to the end of release date probably wasn't.
Did go through the zoning process, but there was something about
there was a zoning
you
application.
You had to pay like $10,000 of property, which
there's
the daycare
road
just
dedication and
doesn't
cash
have
in
that
lieu for a sidewalk.
Obviously.
Yeah.
Okay, I was just wondering if there was a way, because it kind of sounded like you mentioned some options. And then besides that one.
We had asked about a temporary use, and then that's where we found out. And I thought, oh, that's a great idea, but then that's where the Local Government Act, which is beyond, that's provincial regulation, doesn't allow that as an option.
Okay, and is it possible to, if it is going to be rezoned, is that possible to do by September? I guess I'm trying to balance the likeliness of, can it be put through that fast if...
Well, what we're looking at is amending the zone, which would be faster than a rezone.
Okay.
So that's, but...
So it's doable if...
It's doable.
Okay.
Potentially. So it's just, like, we can amend a zone at any time that it would allow different uses and the like. We've done that for brew pubs, for example, and we've done it for cannabis. We have amended a zone to allow cannabis to the sale of on 4 addresses.
Okay, so it
And
is
it went through
possible
a
in the
process.
time frame.
So,
Okay.
Through your worship, I think maybe it might be helpful for the public. They may not understand that amending a bylaw requires first and second reading, then there's a public hearing. You can't do it out as a result of a petition, like legislatively, so there might be some misunderstanding of what might happen tonight.
yeah, so I mean, we'll get a report that will then outline the process. So should council wish to do this, these are some pros and cons. Here are things to think of, consider. Do we put a limit in terms of the size? As Councillor Beto said when he looked at the Langford zoning, it's allowed on that particular lot, but it caps out at a certain one. So do we examine that? And then what does the process look like? So that is the report that we're asking so that we can actually move forward in doing that. A longer approach would say, well, maybe the applicant should just rezone the property, and then that would be another avenue. So we're looking at something that would, I think, is our fastest option, actually, although it seems very slow. But we had to put it in process, because if we just said, oh, let's do this, then we are not allowing the public any opportunity to weigh in favor of or in opposition to. We're not considering the impact. And that's where, as Councillor Logan said, every time we do that, while it seems good at the time, it creates a bigger problem that we then have to run and chase out. We just want to make sure that we don't do this and that we set it out properly. So it seems like we're acting slowly, but we're not.
Okay.
But thank you.
Thank you.
Oh, yes, and if you want, Patty, Ms. Rear can take that, and she'll make sure that council receives it all. Okay, anything further from members of the public? Okay. Just turn on the, oh, perfect, thank you.
So this is probably a little bit repetitive, but I still think it's important. My name is Jenny Siglet. I'm from East Sooke. I'm a parent of 3 small children, one of whom currently attends Sooke Montessori. I drive around the basin from across Whiff and Spit twice a day, 4 days a week, so that my daughter can attend this preschool. And I've had the pleasure this past year of just watching her bloom as a result of her attendance at Sooke Montessori. I think it's clear that Sooke families need access to quality local childcare. Sooke is a tremendous place to raise a family, and along with that, there's a corresponding pressure for finding quality childcare. Tricia currently runs an established quality program out of the Little House on Kiltassin and at Sooke Cicinos Elementary. The program is staffed by educated, experienced care providers. I see that the District of Sooke recognizes that they have a responsibility to help facilitate access to local quality childcare right here in Sooke. I want to point out that this is the only Montessori program in our community. The next closest program is Westmont in Mechosin, followed by Bloom Montessori, which is on the Langford View Royal border. As somebody else earlier stated, both of these places are prohibitively far for Sooke families to travel to and from. And then the last thing I would like to highlight to Council tonight is recognizing that many of you have had a chance to visit the house on Kiltassin and some of you haven't. It is a remarkable, magical place for small children to spend the day learning. And it's also incredibly convenient for families who have children attending Cicinos Elementary. It's also an ideal location for East Sooke families like myself to access childcare. It's tucked off the highway, there's ample parking, there's excellent green space. And I just would like to reiterate and reinforce the urgency of this. There's, 26 families. There's not much time to get our children on other wait lists for the fall, for if this falls through, that sort of thing. Thank you.
Thank you very much for speaking tonight. Okay, so we'll carry on with tonight's agenda into section 10.1. So our first item up here is a zoning amendment bylaw for 6690 Rhodonite Drive. So over to Mr. Diebler, please.
All right, so this presentation is in relation to an application to rezone 6690 Rhodonite Drive from the R1 large lot residential zone to the R2 medium lot residential zone. So a little bit about the site context. The subject property is 0.28 hectares or 0.7 acres in size, mostly square-shaped lot with frontage along Rhodonite Drive in close proximity to the intersection with Townsend Road. It's currently zoned R1 large lot residential, and it was a recently subdivided lot that was a former strata common property for Bearland Strata subdivision along Rhodonite Drive. It's vacant land. There are no buildings or structures currently on it. And it is within the sewer specified area. The surrounding properties are all zoned R2 medium lot residential, the zone which the applicant is intending to rezone to. And the area is, along Rhodonite Drive is a mix of single-family homes and duplexes. Oops. So as you can see in the photos here, the property is vacant, primarily covered in grasses and shrubs right now. It was formerly used as the septic effluent field for the previously existing strata until the sewer was brought in the area in 2006. It features gently sloping topography from the north down towards the frontage along Rhodonite Drive. In terms of the official community plan, it's within the community residential land use designation, which is an area where low to medium density residential growth is to occur. The proposed development would be considered infill, which this land use designation supports. In particular, this designation supports contiguous residential infill development to medium densities via rezonings, which applies directly to this application, as the proposed rezoning is to the medium lot residential zone, which would make the property contiguous with the surrounding R2 properties. Planning staff support infill development because it represents an efficient use of land and resources. It's worth noting that this would be exempt. This development would be exempt from obtaining a development permit should it be rezoned, as it would result in a subdivision of 4 or less lots. So as previously mentioned, the proposal is to upzone from the R1 large lot residential to R2 medium lot residential with the purpose of creating the 4-lot subdivision, as you can see in the tentative subdivision plan on the screen. 4 would be the maximum number of lots accommodated on the property, given the maximum lot size of 600 square meters in the R2 zone, which is considerably less than the existing minimum lot size of 1,000 square meters in the R1 zone. The applicant is proposing lots ranging in size from 612 to 660 square meters. Important to note that both zones permit secondary suites or small suites on lots with single-family dwellings, not duplexes, and the parking requirements would be 2 spaces per single-family dwelling and 1 per suite. So all developments must be serviced in accordance with bylaw number 404, the Subdivision and Development Standards bylaw. Although the applicant is proposing an internal strata road, their conceptual plan is for lots 1 and 2 along Rhodonite Drive to be accessed directly from Rhodonite. Bylaw 404 does permit driveway access, but at a rate of only 1 driveway access per lot, per lot frontage. So as you can see in their conceptual driveway plan here, there would be the internal strata road and then potentially the 2 driveways on either side for those 2 front lots, with the rear 2 being serviced by the internal strata road. They also prepared conceptual renderings to demonstrate that the driveway access from Rhodonite will fit within the character of the existing neighborhood. And in addition, a parking and access review from Watt Consulting was prepared to address concerns related to driveway access. All of the findings of this report and the renderings and proposals are acceptable to staff. In terms of site servicing and contributions, a stormwater management plan will be required at time of subdivision. Their preliminary design a preliminary design brief submitted with the rezoning application did touch upon this. Sanitary serviceability review application was sent to Stantec. However, the Director of Development Services has indicated that a review is not required as the potential future development is fewer than 10 units. In terms of affordable housing, as you know, the official community plan requires that 10% of the total of any proposed bare land or strata single-family residential subdivisions be affordable housing lots and allows for the possibility of cash in lieu. The applicant is proposing a total contribution amount of $30,000 or $7,500 per lot. This has been calculated based on a 10% of the assessed land value of the property divided by the number of lots, in this case 4, which is attached, the rationale statement is attached to the report. So I'll just mention, although affordable housing contributions are typically calculated on a per unit basis, staff feel that this approach, given their rationale, is acceptable. In terms of the other contributions, there will be a cash in lieu for a 2-meter wide concrete sidewalk collected at time of subdivision, as well as a recommendation for cash in lieu of parkland to be collected at time of subdivision as well. The recommendation is that Council give first and second reading to Zoning Amendment Bylaw number 733-600-70 to rezone 6690 Rhodonite Drive from R1 large lot residential to R2 medium lot residential, and that a public hearing be scheduled for the zoning amendment in accordance with Section 466 of the Local Government Act, and that prior to adoption of zoning amendment bylaw number 733-600-70, the owner be required to enter into a Section 219 covenant registered in priority of all other charges on title for affordable housing contributions. And the applicant is in attendance tonight if there are any specific questions to be directed to them.
Thank you, Mr. Diebler. Questions from members of council? Councillor Beddoes?
Yeah, could you go back to the drawing of the buildings actually on the conceptual design? Yeah, that one right there. I have a lot of trouble with problems with this subdivision. We're looking for 4 lots there. Each could be a duplex, I understand. That's possible, correct? And they're just the bare minimum, just 600 square meters is the minimum. They're 659, 616. It just doesn't fit with the neighborhood as I saw it. I took a drive through it. Very nice neighborhood, single-family dwellings, and then we're going to have this plot in the middle of it. I also have a concern. The fire department has made some comments there about the 6 meters for the driveway. 8 meters is preferred, and I would endorse that as well. So when I look at that and I go down the street to 664, 660, 662, they don't fit in with the neighborhood either. They came in the past. I don't know who built them, but it was before my time. But I look at that drawing there, and I don't know. That's not the suit that I envision in that neighborhood. So I stand opposed to this.
Okay, Councillor St. Pierre.
First, I'd like to thank the staff for the work they're doing on the affordable housing component. I've noticed that we've gone from $1 to $3 to $7,000 per unit, and I can't help but think this is a wonderful trend. So thanks for that. I share some of the concerns, especially given that the picture there, at least to me, shows some rather large homes. I'm not clear on what the actual footprint is or the square footage, but they are very, very large, or at least they look large for the lots. Maybe it's just the shrubbery on the side, or it's just the way the graphic is done, but they seem to dwarf the lots in some manner.
Through your worship to Councillor St. Pierre, these renderings were just prepared as a conceptual, for conceptual purposes, in particular in relation to the driveway access, as that was a concern raised by engineering staff. At the rezoning stage, it's not clear yet whether there'll be single families or duplexes or what size the actual homes or structures would be.
Good to know.
Yeah.
Councillor Bateman?
Yeah, I had a few questions. Now, in the internal referral from engineering, it states all driveways within proposed development must be accessed from internal road. No new driveways to be constructed with direct access to road night. And I see there's two right there in that proposal. So that might be something that the engineering department would have an issue with.
So, those particular comments were initial referral comments from the engineering staff, and once we worked with the applicant and they prepared that, they had that, the Watt Consulting Transportation report prepared, it became clear that having those driveway accesses off of road night would be acceptable.
Okay.
Those are just a guideline. They're not from engineering staff, that internal road access.
I should also add that the site is quite sloped towards road night, so having the side of a house and the driveway at the top back didn't really make sense from a design perspective, so they had that rationale. And then just to reiterate, the bylaw 404, some of that is a guideline. There is some ability for planning and engineering staff to work together on the context. And so when originally the comments came from engineering, it was very, okay, here's what the bylaw says. We worked with the applicant's engineer and came up with a concept that would make sense for getting around that. And with respect to the zoning, there may be a lot of single-family homes there, but they're zoned to do this. So you may not see this right now, but the zoning allows for those things. So please keep in mind, we take a risk when we show the concepts to council. It's really all you're looking at is the color on the map, just the zoning.
So I had a follow-up question, and that related to that traffic assessment. It stated at PM peak hour, it generated a total of 4 trips from this development. And I'm curious about what a trip means because, in a 2-income household, 4 lots, if indeed they are single-family homes, that could equal 8 cars and 2 incomes heading out the door morning and night and returning at night. So could you explain that and what 4 trips means?
Unfortunately, I don't believe the engineer is here that did the TIA, but our understanding is a trip is a car trip, right. Not 8 car trips, so 4 car trips at peak hours each, so 4 at each peak hour.
So kind of old-fashioned families will be living there at the dual income. And to echo Councillor St. Pierre, it's this first time in my brief experience here I've seen an applicant prepared to honor the district's official community plan request that 10% of any proposed single-family subdivision be dedicated to affordable housing lots. So that's quite something because we keep seeing this $1,000 cash in lieu, and I think the very next application follows that. And anyway, yeah. Thank you.
Councillor. Councillor Logans.
Thank you. Thanks for the presentation and the work on this. My concern echoes Councillor Beddoes in terms of the fire department recommending 8 meters. I tend to try to appease their recommendations, especially as we have more and more fires due to environmental reasons. Not that would affect this particularly, but making sure that the homes that we have in Sooke are ones that can easily be accessed in case of emergency is very important to me. And I can just imagine that the hammerhead, although it may not be intended for parking, when you have visitors, would be, and that's definitely a concern of the fire departments and one that I echo as well.
So in terms of parking, is parking not to be, and I hear what you say about the concept drawing, but parking has to be accommodated on the property, though, not in the driveway. And it's the same. So let's say Lot 3, for example, they put in a house with a suite, because they could do that, house with a suite, or a duplex, but duplexes cannot have suites. So house and suite or duplex, same, basically. Let's say there's 2 families, but all the parking has to be accommodated on the actual site plan. Is that not correct?
Yes, that's correct. So
Okay.
any parking would have to be accommodated on the actual properties themselves. And I'll just point out as well, as a result of that report that the applicant had prepared from the Watt Consulting Group, it was recommended that no parking be allowed on the internal strata road, with the exception of that top portion for those lots 3 and 4, and that nothing to the south of that have any on-street parking. And as well, in terms of the internal strata road width and those concerns from fire, that will be addressed at time of subdivision.
Okay, so there's still that opportunity, but visitor parking then would not be provided anywhere, so, which is like anywhere else in our community, right? Visitors park where they find a place to park. Okay, Councillor Logans?
Just to follow up, and I understand this may be at a different point and not a discussion for tonight, but when we're talking about accommodating parking, that's 1.5 parking spaces.
Yeah.
So it doesn't really, like, we already know we have issues with our parking bylaws, but would there be opportunity to put no parking signs? Like, there's no real guarantee that there won't be, you know, a road full of vehicles.
Are you referring to the strata driveway?
Mm-hmm.
We could have them put signage up there. I would think, though, that whoever lives in proposed lot 3 is going to get very short with lot 1 or 2.
Mm-hmm.
If they're parking there and they can't access their home safely, it's likely that they're going to. It's a strata, right? So they're going to have some form of. They'll need to create a strata to deal with what's impacted. That's common. That's the road maintenance, and I would imagine they would need to resolve that on their own. But signage could go up as well, right?
Through your worship, fire has the hammer to say they want it to be a fire lane only.
Yes.
Strata or no.
So that'll be resolved.
So
during
if they
subdivision.
weren't to go to 8 meters because of their design constraints or whatever, then fire would say through subdivision this will be a designated fire lane and mark it accordingly.
Okay. But in terms of like the vehicle, I mean, this is within reasonable walking distance to transit. Probably the Otter Point would be the better option if you were going to take the 61 because it comes up and down that way. We're looking at getting the neighborhood. There is a neighborhood bus that runs down Church Road right now. And of course, many people would walk to Sooke Road to catch transit, as well as, it's walkable at distance into town. I'm comfortable moving it forward to public hearing. I think in terms of the affordability context and also in terms of families, like this is walking distance to Poyer, to Journey Middle School, and even to Sea Park, and hopefully eventually over into Sun River through the trail system that we're currently working on. It's also, you could easily walk and get on the internal trail system quite quickly from here. So it's very walkable, and this is where infill has come up. So in terms of Councillor Beddoes and the other site a little further along, that was parkland that at the time Council of the Day sold off, and it was developed, and that's where that infill development came through, is at that time. So a little bit different than what exists throughout the other neighborhood. This was one of the first subdivisions that Sooke probably established back in the day. But still, I think it's, comfortable moving along. So, Councillor St. Pierre?
Again, an appreciation for the contribution on affordable housing. I don't prefer that more of the development in Sooke be these large homes that are going to cost too much for anyone working in Sooke to be able to live in. That doesn't actually work for me. Having said that, we haven't done our OCP review, and the proponents could still go ahead and build 2 large homes without any problems and without any input from council or anything to say to us, and we would lose our affordable housing component. As such, I will support, but I have to say that I'm looking forward to an OCP review that will give us better guidelines in terms of what we really want for our community.
So maybe a different concept photo for the public hearing. I mean, in some cases, though, families are living together for generations, and they need the room to be able to do that. Councillor Logans? Councillor Logans is moving first and second reading to zoning amendment bylaw number 733-600-70 to rezone 6690 Rodent Drive from R1 large lot residential to R2 medium lot residential. Seconded by Councillor Bateman. Any discussion on first and second? Anything further? Ms. Rear? Yes.
Your Worship, I just noticed that the bylaw actually doesn't state within the bylaw itself that it should say under 2, the section of land legally described as Lot A plan, blah, blah, blah. It should actually add on there, here is hereby amended from large lot residential R1 to medium lot residential R2, and that statement's not included in the actual draft bylaw, and it should be.
Okay, but we can still move ahead with these recommendations, and that'll just be addressed at the next one. Right?
Sure.
Okay.
I think you'll have to amend.
I'll call the question then. All those in favor?
Your Worship, can we give the bylaw as it sits on the sheet, first reading?
Okay.
Amend it as then to move the to note on section. In section 2 of the bylaw would read the section of land legally described as Lot A plan, EPP 75110, section 25, Sooke Land District, be hereby amended to from large or to be hereby rezoned from large lot residential R1 to medium lot residential R2. And if
okay, so because I haven't called the question on the first motion, can we just amend it then? So Councillor Logans is the mover, has agreed to amend it to just first reading, right? And mover, seconder, Councillor Bateman is okay with that? So I'll call the question on first then. All those in favor? Opposed? Councillor Beddoes is opposed. The motion carries. And then the next part then is that zoning amendment bylaw number. Okay, I need to just wait till that's. Can't read it now. Okay. Okay. And that zoning amendment bylaw number 733-600-70 be amended to state 6690 Rhodonite Drive from R1 large lot residential to R2 medium lot residential. Correct? Is that good, that language?
correct, Your Worship, and then that we give second reading to the bylaw as amended.
Okay. So, but I'll move, so Councillor Logans, if you can move that one I just read out.
Moved.
And seconded by Councillor Bateman. I'm trying to tell you what to do, but anyway. All those in favor? Opposed? Councillor Beddoes is opposed. Carried. Next is, and that council gives second reading to, and second reading to zone, huh? Okay, right? Okay. And that council gives second reading to zoning amendment bylaw number 733-600-70 as amended. Moved by Councillor Logans, seconded by Councillor... No. St. Pierre. Any further discussion? All those in favor? Opposed? Councillor Beddoes is opposed. It's carried. And then that a public hearing be scheduled for the zoning amendment in accordance with Section 466 of the Local Government Act. Moved by Councillor Bateman, seconded by Councillor St. Pierre. All those in favor? Opposed? Councillor Beddoes is opposed. And lastly, and that prior to adoption of zoning amendment bylaw number 733-600-70, the owner be required to enter into a Section 219 covenant registered in priority of all other charges on title for affordable housing contribution. Moved by Councillor St. Pierre and seconded by Councillor Logans. All those in favor? Opposed? Carried unanimously. Done. Oh, pardon me. You didn't oppose. Counts. It wasn't.
That part you should be in favor. That's okay.
Carried.
I could do that.
Okay. Thank you. So next is 10.2. And Mr. DeBoer, welcome back.
All right, so this presentation is about an application to rezone 1939 Maple Ave South from the R1 large lot residential zone to the R2 medium lot residential zone. The subject property is 0.38 hectares or 0.95 acres in size. As you can see on the map, it's a long, narrow lot with frontage both on Maple Avenue South and a small portion along Galaxy Road, which is an unimproved road right-of-way opposite Maple Ave. It's approximately 150 meters long and 23 meters wide. The property is currently zoned R1 large lot residential, and it's surrounded by properties zoned RM2 medium density multifamily 2 and R1 large lot residential to the east and west. There are also properties zoned RU3 small scale agriculture and RM1 low density multifamily 1 in the vicinity of the property as well. So quite a wide range of different zones. It's within the sewer specified area, and the topography of the site is generally flat with a gentle slope running from the site's eastern boundary to the southern boundary, I believe. Elevation change of 12 meters throughout the site. There's currently one single-family dwelling and one garage and 2 deteriorating accessory structures located on the property, as you can see on the images from the site visit. In terms of the official community plan, similar to our previous application, this is within the community residential land use designation, which is an area of low to medium density residential growth. Once again, this proposed development could be considered infill with this land use which the land use designation supports, and is also one of the guiding principles of the Sooke Smart Growth. Again, staff support the efficient use of land and resources that infill development helps facilitate. This would, as proposed, the proposal would be exempt from obtaining a development permit, as the proposed subdivision is for 4 lots, and 4 lots or less do not require a development permit. In terms of the zoning bylaw, the applicant, as mentioned, is rezoning from R1 to R2 medium lot residential. The minimum lot size in the R2 zone is 600 square meters, which is considerably less than the 1,000 meters squared. The maximum potential on this property is 6 lots, given the 600 square meter minimum lot size. However, it's very difficult, given the dimensions and shape of the property, to actually make this feasible in any realistic way. So the applicant is proposing instead to create a 4-lot fee simple subdivision with 2 panhandle lots at in the interior of the property. Those lots would range in size from 800 to 855 square meters. Excluding the panhandle portion for those panhandle lots. Once again, both zones permit secondary suites or small suites on lots with single-family dwellings, as well. On each of those lots could be the maximum density could be a single-family dwelling or a duplex. In terms of site servicing and contributions, a stormwater management plan will be required at time of subdivision and designed in accordance with the bylaw 404. Sanitary serviceability review was sent to Stantec. However, Development Services has indicated that a review is not required, as the proposed development is for less than 10 units. Staff are recommending that the applicant provide a 4.5 meter wide paved driveway through Galaxy Drive, the unimproved road right-of-way, from Pauliuk Drive that would provide access to 2 of the 4 lots. This driveway is to be hard surface to the property line and will be addressed as a requirement at time of subdivision. In terms of affordable housing, the applicant in this case is proposing a cash in lieu contribution of $1,000 per unit to address the district's affordable housing policy. This is based on their rationale statement attached in the report, and could, if the maximum number of achievable units, which would be the 2 on each lot, if that were to take place, it could result in a total contribution of up to $8,000 on the total property. The sidewalk cash in lieu cash in lieu is recommended for a 2 meter wide concrete sidewalk along the Maple Avenue frontage, which again would be addressed as a requirement at time of subdivision. Parkland as well, in this case, is being recommended that a cash in lieu be accepted at time of subdivision. The recommendation is that Council give first and second reading to zoning amendment bylaw number 736, 600-71 to rezone 1939 Maple Avenue from R1 large lot residential to R2 medium lot residential, and that a public hearing be scheduled for the zoning amendment in accordance with Section 466 of the Local Government Act, and that prior to adoption of zoning amendment bylaw number 736, 600-71, the owner be required to enter into a Section 219 covenant registered in priority of the other charges on title for the affordable housing contributions. That concludes the presentation. Once again, the applicants in this for the application are here if there are any questions to be directed specifically to them.
Okay, I think there's a comment from Corporate Services.
Yes, Your Worship. Again, this one, in the actual bylaw itself, we need to amend it to include the same as the last one. So if we could just give first reading and then do an amendment, that Council amend bylaw number 736 to include as part of number 2 to rezone 1939 Maple Avenue South from R1 large lot residential to R2 medium lot residential. And then a third motion to give that Council give a second reading as amended, and public hearing and the covenant. Those three things can be done in one motion.
Okay, so I'll let, if you wanted, Council may have questions about this before we get into that. So if you're able to work with Ms. Temple just to have it all sorted and group them together, and then when I see them separately, I think we can't move them as a block. So that's what I look for the white space. Okay, questions, Mr. Diebler. Just for clarity, then, to access this property, then you would actually have two options. You could either go through Maple Avenue South and then through Galaxy Drive as well, as part of it would be to improve that road.
Yes, so there are two frontages along two public road right-of-ways. As the applicant is proposing, two lots would be accessed via Maple Avenue South, and two of them would be accessed via Galaxy Drive.
Oh, I see. So you couldn't drive all the way through. Okay, that makes more sense. Okay, got it. Questions from members of Council? Councillor St. Pierre?
In terms of the affordable housing component, you mentioned 8,000, but my reading seemed to indicate 4,000 based on 4 units potentially and 1,000 per door.
So the 1,000 is on a per unit basis. I know it can be a little confusing with the previous one being on a per lot, but it's given that it's a per unit basis and the maximum density that could be permitted on each of those 4 lots, if it were to be rezoned, would be 2, so that would be a duplex, so that would be 2 units on each of the 4 lots, which would be 1,000 times 8. So meaning the total possible contribution could be up to 8,000.
Okay, so just to clarify, though the drawings that I was looking at showed 4 footprints, we're potentially looking at 4 lots, subdivided into 4 lots with a potential of 2 homes per lot, correct?
In the form of a duplex, like in the R2 zone, and you're permitted to have either a single-family dwelling or a duplex on each of those lots.
Again, just to clarify, the zoning, the R1 zone that is in place right now allows for assumed 2 homes? Are we going from 2 to 8? Is that the idea, or what are you looking at here?
The maximum, like the maximum permitted density currently?
At this time.
So at this time, I'll go back to the...
Yeah, I know.
So the maximum number of lots that could potentially be built or that could potentially be subdivided from the current property with the R1 zone would be 3. So that would be potentially in the R1 zone. You could also have a duplex on each of those lots, so it could be 6 units. That would be the maximum permitted there today. So essentially the change is from the maximum of 3 lots to what is feasible as 4, but potentially given the size could be 6, which is summarized in the table that was shown previously. But yeah.
Okay, I fully support the work that was done on the previous file in terms of actually increasing our affordable housing. I think that it's something that our entire community needs very, very badly. I don't see why we should be accepting, again, the $1,000 cash in lieu. Cash in lieu, by the way, at this point is just becoming a dirty word for me. I mean, honestly, we need sidewalks way more than the small amounts that we're getting. And I know that's not your, that's not our wonderful staff's problem. That's not your policy per se. But I have to say that when we so desperately need affordable housing, I know that people are going to make good money on selling these units. We should be able to ask for a reasonable contribution beyond $1,000 per door. And I would not support this as it stands. I would love to see it sent back.
Okay, Councillor Beddoes? Did you have your hand up?
Well, I do now.
Okay.
I'm okay, yes.
Sorry,
I did
I
want to
thought
comment.
you did. Okay, go ahead.
That's okay.
Slide of speaking order.
I guess I share that same 1,000 per unit. I don't think that's enough. The other concern is the 6 meters driveway that they have going down to service Lot B and Lot C, I believe it is. I don't know whether they can get anything bigger out of that, but when we're touring around to different lots, and 6 meters is not very big, and I worry that we should be asking for something larger than that. And I think in the previous application, the chief said 8 meters would be better. I don't have a problem with the 4 lots, even if they're duplexes. It does fit with the neighborhood next door. There's townhouses all up and down the neighborhood. So I'm okay in that respect, but I would like to see certainly more than $1,000 per unit, and I'd like to see if there's some way to increase that driveway to 8.
Just through your worship to Councillor Beddoes on the driveway issue, those are actually the panhandle, I think was what you're referring to, of the components for lots B and C. And that 6 meter minimum is the minimum width in the zoning bylaw for the panhandle lots for that
I understand
access.
that's 6 meter minimum, right? Correct.
Yes.
Okay, Mr. Schaefer?
Your worship, while it would be ideal for the district to have a higher contribution to the affordable housing fund, it's not necessarily to do with land use, and it wouldn't be a fair consideration for council to turn down the proposal solely based on a contribution that council feels should be higher. If you're dealing with land use, it's a land use issue, and the contribution is something that's negotiated as part of the process. If you take my meaning.
Okay, Councillor Bateman, then Logans.
Okay, I wanted to thank the applicant for their affordable housing contribution rationale. Gave me some good insights into how other communities are dealing with this. This, like many places in Sooke, is a transitional neighborhood. This is 2 lots north of the property we upzoned for Mr. Broman late last year. It seemed when I looked at it, it's kind of dense. There's 4 properties, 4 lots, perhaps 3 might have been better, but I see there's a lot separation of, what was it, 15 meters? I think, between the lots. Anyway, I'd like to move that we, all of that language that was up there, we move first reading and get on to that process because it's getting late.
Can we get that screen on? So Councillor Bateman is moving that council give first reading to zoning amendment bylaw number 736-600-61 to rezone 1939 Maple Avenue South from R1 large lot residential R2 medium lot residential. And is there a seconder? Seconded by Councillor Beddoes. So anything further on the motion? Speaking to the motion, Councillor Logans.
I know that it's not fair to the applicant to turn down the motion based on contribution, but I do want to quickly point out that Highwood Properties in the last discussion had 4 lots at $30,000. The rationale provided by this applicant is more an excuse why not to support affordable housing, and unlike Highwood's comment that they're passionate about this, supporting this cause, it's quite, it shows the community which developers are more interested in investing in our community and which are not. And I just think it's kind of shameful. Of course, it is the district's fault for having this policy in place, and it's something we need to change. But I hope that it's something the developers take onus on as well.
Okay, anything further on the motion? I'll call the question then. All those in favor? Opposed? Councillors St. Pierre and Logans are opposed. The motion carries. The next part is that zoning amendment bylaw number 736-600-71 be amended to include that the property known as Lot 1, Section 3, Sooke Land District Plan VIP 5723 be rezoned from R1 large lot residential to R2 medium lot residential.
I'll move that.
Moved by Councillor Bateman and seconded by Councillor Beddoes. Anything further? All
Can I
those.
speak to the motion?
Sure.
Yeah,
Microphone on.
To follow up on Councillor Logan's comments, this applicant is following this $1,000 in lieu has seemed to be a tradition here, and we're really only seeing a new precedent set with these last two situations. So yeah, so to be clear, I just wanted to make that comment.
Thank you. So, Ms. Campbell?
Just a reminder to Council, in a similar application in a not-so-distant past, Council did direct staff to, they gave first and second reading and directed staff to work with the applicant on the affordable housing contribution prior to public hearing.
Okay. Councillor Logans, then St. Pierre.
Just to follow up on Councillor Bateman's comments, that's the exact reason why we're in a housing crisis, because we're not investing in our affordable housing and not requiring people to invest in it. So, I'm voting against. I want this to go through, but I also want to put my hand up against it to make a point. I know that it will continue and we'll get to a public hearing, and I'll support that as well, but I just have to make that point. And it would be great if we could work with the applicant instead of making excuses to make this a priority for our community.
Okay, Councillor St. Pierre.
The first time this sort of thing came up, we unanimously voted against because the 1,000 cash in lieu just didn't seem adequate to our need for affordable housing. And that was reasonable because it sent a clear message, I think, to the development community. And they've responded very, very well, and I really appreciate that. And our staff has done wonderful work with them to actually, increase those contributions. At that point in time, I felt badly that the proponent didn't have a chance to come back to us, that we were recommended by staff, why don't you send us back to do some more negotiating? And that's really the kind of thing I'd like to see right now. I'd like to see us be able to say, no, that's not really what we're doing anymore, but we don't want to send you back 6 months into the future or a year into the future. I'd like you to just, let's negotiate, let's keep doing this. At this point in time, I want to keep on sending that clear message. We really need affordable housing, we need the resources, we need the awareness. So I will continue to not support this. Having said that, I don't disagree with the proposal in itself. I think that it's appropriate, the infill is appropriate, the work is good. I just think that we need to be very clear that we need affordable housing and that we're not going to take anything less.
Okay, Councillor Beddoes.
Yeah, I would hope the developer sort of took heed there, and when you come back the next time around, might be more interesting to see a larger amount there, because I'm sort of on the cusp myself whether to support this just on that alone.
Okay, so we have a motion that's it's moving it forward. So, and I think there's a question for staff process-wise. So should this all carry through as it's stated on the screen here? And the developer and his representative are both present tonight. So given that they're seeing split votes, even though this is carrying along like this, and should it clear all the way to public hearing, will the developer have time to make any changes to the affordable housing in that time period, should this pass as it is?
Yes, so you notice the wording on is just enter into 219 covenant for affordable housing contributions, and then that's captured in the details of the report.
Okay.
At the public hearing, staff does another presentation, and
okay.
we would then we would amend that presentation to show the actual new amount.
Okay.
And that would be on record in minutes.
Perfect. Okay, so I'm going to call the question on this one that we've just moved and seconded. All those in favor? Opposed? Councillor St. Pierre and Councillor Logans are opposed. Motion's carried. The next part is that council gives second reading as amended to zoning amendment bylaw number 736, 600-71. Councillor Bateman is moving it. Councillor Beddoes is seconding it. And it's up to the developer. I'm supporting this to see it move forward, and then to a public hearing. Well, we'll hear more from the public, but it also allows an opportunity. You can then speak to it and stand on the position that has been outlined, or make modifications and see how you want to progress. Councillor Beddoes?
Yeah, I too am supporting it just to move it forward.
Okay, clear. Okay. Okay. All those in favor? Opposed? Councillor St. Pierre and Councillor Logans are opposed. Motion's carried. The next part is that a public hearing be scheduled for the zoning amendment in accordance with Section 466 of the Local Government Act. Moved by Councillor Logans and seconded by Councillor Bateman. This is for a public hearing. All those in favor? Opposed? That's carried unanimously.
Can I comment at this point?
I called the question, so
okay.
We have one more motion, and then you can speak. And that prior to adoption of zoning amendment bylaw number 736, 600-71, the owner be required to enter into a Section 219 covenant, registered in priority of all other charges on title for affordable housing contributions. Moved by Councillor Logans, seconded by Councillor Bateman. Speaking to this, Councillor Bateman.
Well, I just want to state for the record that I too am moving this forward so we can get to a public hearing. I am absolutely in favor of increased affordable housing contributions, and I took some exception to the use of the word shameful in relation to an applicant who's following certain traditions here in Sooke. So that's why I raised that point, but I would like to see this come to public hearing where we can all make our points in a proper context. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Bateman. I'll just share that I liked the rationale statement and thought it was fine, and that it was consistent with everything that was in.
Consistent with our current crisis.
Well, and we have motions to put in more things. So anyway, call the question. All those in favor? Opposed? That's carried unanimously. Okay. Moving along. Here is our council.
Did we not get to speak to this?
No, I'm sorry. I've already.
Well, I know.
You would have.
I raised my hand several times.
It would have been at the beginning of the meeting, and then at public hearing we have allocated in the procedures.
Because there's a mistake in the application that it says, or in the presentation that it says I know this isn't going to be a huge point for council, but it was $1,000 per lot for 4 lots, not per unit.
So then that's $4,000 total.
$4,000. The other thing was that there were other elements that I wanted to talk about in terms of affordable housing that I think would have been applicable this evening.
Okay, but I need to cut. It is moving forward, and at the public hearing, after staff present, there'll be an opportunity for the applicant to speak at that time after the staff presentation. Usually at this stage, we obtain, if council has a question that staff are unable to answer, we will ask if the applicant is present to answer those questions. But at this time, everything was answered and it moved through. So there will be an opportunity at the next stage of this for the applicant to comment. But at this point, I'll just share that majority of council is comfortable moving ahead, but is not comfortable with the affordable housing contribution as outlined in the report. So some further work on that needs to come back to council at the public hearing. Okay. Councillor St. Pierre?
I'm not sure if the contribution from the proponents would actually clear up some of the affordable housing stuff, but I have to admit that I'm very interested in hearing what could be said on it.
Not with this agenda.
Not with this agenda? Well, there is that. It's very late.
It's moved forward.
And it's huge.
It's
okay.
Moving forward. Okay. Okay, 10.3, council procedural bylaw. Okay, so we discussed this at length during the committee of the whole of some changes to our internal processes. So staff have now taken that and have put, well, basically we adopted the recommendations that were in place. So at this point, looking for council to give first, second, and third reading to the bylaws cited as Council Procedure Bylaw 728-2019. Moved by Councillor St. Pierre and seconded by Councillor Bateman. Anything further on the procedural bylaw? There's some changes, I admit, that I'm not fully on board with. Consent agenda, you can see there was some comment that, oh, these could all fall on the consent agenda. You could see how right away those would have, if that were the case, they would have been pulled out and we would not be passing them in that way. Still not certain that the correspondence is a good approach, but I think we should try it and see what it looks like. And we can modify it if it's not working. Okay? Anything further? Okay. Call the question then. All those in favor? Opposed? That's carried unanimously. And that staff be directed to provide public notice in accordance with Section 94 of the Community Charter before adoption. Moved by Councillor Logans and seconded by Councillor St. Pierre. Anything further? All those in favor? Opposed? Is carried unanimously. Okay, 10.4 is cannabis retail, and that is that council adopt the bylaw cited as zoning amendment bylaw number 730-600-69, 2019. Move adoption by Councillor St. Pierre and seconded by Councillor.
Wait, where are we?
We are adopting the cannabis.
Right.
10.4, seconded by Councillor Bateman. Anything further? Does this mean that the retailers can now remove the signs that are on their properties? Is that when you remove your rezoning sign is when the adoption is passed? So you have to keep them all the way until it's adopted?
Yes.
Got it. Okay. All those in favor?
Can I comment before we go?
Opposed? I'm calling the question.
I thought I would, as a seconder of a motion, do I not get an opportunity to speak to the motion?
Okay, go ahead, Council.
wanted
There's
to-
also a desire, before you go ahead, for Council to move through the agenda. So
Yeah,
that's
I got
what
it.
I'm
I'll
doing.
keep it quick.
Okay.
Okay. I just wanted to clarify that at the previous hearing, I was summarizing the four shops. And in terms of there were two, I stated there were two locally owned and two were interesting hybrids involving offshore owners, right? And what I wanted to clarify is that the Metawana store is also locally owned by Mr. Lang, who's here in the audience tonight, and I did make a commitment to Mr. Lang to make that clear. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Bateman, for... There's one thing, though, that with adoption is, although you're correcting yourself, you can't really add anything more to it. Like, that's why I'm moving through adoption very quickly.
Okay.
Ms. Campbell?
I just want to point out that I'm really excited about this. We're going to make a final decision. We're basically setting records on cannabis retail, getting through zoning amendment, and in all of BC and other parts of Canada. So I want to make this a moment for you, council, and the community, anyone that's watching, that this is a great win for us, and actually for Nicholas as a new young planner, this is a huge project for him. Unfortunately, he's already gone, but I wanted to kind of thank him for all that work, and I will again tomorrow.
Okay, so just on that note, I am doing a presentation at the FCM on this, and it's the municipal perspective that they're looking for. So that is something I would like you to summarize for me so that we can share that, because there's some areas that are still not even moving ahead on anything, and out of concerns of, I guess, public safety. I'm not entirely sure. I guess I'll find out at the session, but it's just that they were interested in what we are doing and why, so I can kind of answer the why, but I would like some more on what, and in terms of the speed, I would, if you could provide that to me.
Committee of the Whole, May 21st, production facilities.
Okay, that's too late for my presentation. Yes, so I need to have things sort of finalized relatively soon, so if you wouldn't mind that, would be great.
The date of your presentation?
Well, it's at FCM, but I suppose I can add to it, but if I'm going to do a PowerPoint, I have to have it sent to them by May 22nd, and I don't want to be working on it on May 21st. Just usually my usual tactic. Anyway, so I need to, okay, are we procedurally, I was in the middle of calling the question, so I'll call the question now. All those in favor? Opposed? It's carried unanimously. And I know that there's one owner. I would like to know, once you actually receive provincial licensing, if you have some way of contacting us to let us know that.
I'll let you know for sure. I'm about a month from being done the fit and proper for the province, and as soon as they give an inspection after your inspectors, then I can apply for the product.
Okay, so keep us.
I'll email and my email.
Yes, please do. We'd like to visit.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Yes, we'll come by and visit. Okay, so that's excellent. So property tax rate. That council adopt the bylaw cited as property tax rate, bylaw number 735, 2019. Moved by Councillor Logan, seconded by Councillor St. Pierre. Any further discussion? We did a draft of the insert that's going to be mailed out, and Councillor Bateman helped me with some of the edits. I'm wondering if you could send us the final proof of whatever is going out, or give us, like, maybe email the copy, the final one, so that we all know exactly what it is before it starts showing up in the mail. So can someone from staff do that? Got it. Okay. Call the question. All those in favor? Opposed? It's carried unanimously. 10.6 is our plastic bag ban draft checkout bag regulation, bylaw number 734.
I must recuse myself as the Facebook content producer for Zero Waste Sooke.
But we're on a bylaw now, Councillor Bateman, so I don't feel that you would need to step out on this one, because this is a bylaw, right? So it's not like, it's not an initiative by Transition Sooke anymore. It's a strict bylaw. Okay. So I think you're fine to stay in the room on this. And corporate services is nodding. So we're good. So please stay. Okay, so we have a bylaw here in front of us. Thank you, staff, and for everyone for working on this. Not bad when we said to the delegation that it's coming. It's a pretty good turnaround. So thank you for making that happen. So we have any comments, and then we have some recommendations here. Councillor St. Pierre.
Just a very quick comment. I'd like to thank previous council for actually moving this forward in the first place. And I'd also like to point out that at this point in time, we have an actual call to action moving us forward in a way that is recognizable, and I'm incredibly happy about it.
And you'll see around Sooke that many are already doing a lot of different things on their own, and I believe it's the Stickleback that has also moved to a different form for takeout. I read something about that. Because the one thing I didn't think about was restaurants with takeout. It's a little bit different, but these are checkout bags. But they're already, the industry and businesses are already moving ahead, so that's great. Okay, so we have here that council grant first and second readings to District of Sooke checkout bag regulation bylaw number 734, 2019. Moved by Councillor St. Pierre and seconded by Councillor Beddoes. Any discussion? All those in favor? Opposed? It's carried unanimously. And that staff be directed to send notification to each valid business license holder in the District of Sooke and publish notice in the local newspaper to satisfy the requirements of Section 59(2) and 3 of the Community Charter. I like that. Councillor St. Pierre is moving it and Councillor Bateman is seconding it. Once this is adopted, I wouldn't mind sending a note to the two youth that presented to us. Send them a copy of the bylaw, because I did say that we would be following up with that. Okay? All those in favor? Opposed? It's carried unanimously. I did send a card. Okay. Okay. That's good. No. Business license process. Okay, so we had asked for this, so thank you very much. It's great to see this. So we have a report, and quite lengthy, showing all the different businesses that have licenses. I was interested to see that, where did I read it? That, I'm in the wrong report. That, so farms do require business licenses. That one, we weren't sure about that, so that's good for clarity here.
Under the Farm Practices Act, there is no exemption for farms, nor is there in our current bylaw.
Okay, so that'll be a part then, and I didn't look to see how many farms actually have licenses. I know that there's the full listing within here, but that's something I think with signage and whatever that we would need to complement or just take into consideration while we are complaint driven. Ms. Mills, since you're here tonight, do you have anything further that you would like to just raise to our attention with this bylaw and this process?
Your Worship, Council, the only thing I'd like to add is that, and you've noted, is the bylaw as it currently stands is very outdated with the amount of businesses that are coming in and the sophistication of businesses and business owners. There's a lot of work to be done on the bylaw for clarity for the business owners so that they know what playing field they have. Not so much from an enforcement perspective, but to benefit the businesses.
So is that where, like, part of this would be for an amendment then is to modernize this, and then we can look at finding ways to maybe undo some unnecessary bureaucracy, I guess?
Absolutely, to modernize. One of the issues that recently has surfaced is a require to consider suspension or cancellation of business licenses. In the current bylaw, it's not clearly defined under what conditions that can be done, and I think that needs clarity. If it were challenged that I as a business license inspector canceled or suspended a business license and it was challenged in court, we'd be laughed at, frankly. And so there's no way that we can carry forward on those actions. And I think potentially there are some businesses that need to be disciplined in that manner. And so this is just, making sure that our I's are dotted and our T's crossed.
Okay, so here, okay, no, that's great. I really appreciate that. And this is over a decade old now, and so with all the growth and all the activity, I look forward to seeing something more modern. So thank you very much for bringing this forward to us as it stands, and then we'll look forward to more as well. Councillor St. Pierre.
Just quickly, I really appreciated the comment about actually trying to rationalize things so that it actually helps businesses and is less in the lines of making it more difficult for someone to go into business, but more, clearing some of that out of the way. So any work that can be done in the direction of actually promoting local economic development that way is really appreciated. Thank you.
Councillor Bateman?
So I just had a couple of questions. The business license inspector, who is that?
That's myself.
That's you, okay.
Mm-hmm. That's an appointment by council.
All right. All due respect. Yes. And the report says 728 open businesses have licenses here in Sooke.
That's correct.
Do you have any guesstimate on how many are operating without business licenses?
I wouldn't, unless they're brought to my attention and I take action to actually have those businesses comply with the bylaw. Yeah, I have no idea.
Okay. All right. And you're not in the position to be combing the yellow pages and you've just got your second in command, so that's
as time permits, and if I can eat my lunch at my desk while scanning through the mirror or other online services, I may come across a name.
And what happens when you do?
I send them a letter with a business license application.
Right. Thank you.
That's a good approach. Here you go.
Just a friendly reminder, we're here.
Yeah, exactly. Okay, so we have three parts here, and that council received the report on business license process for information. Moved by Councillor Beddoes, seconded by Councillor Logans. Anything further on that? All those in favor? Opposed? That's carried unanimously. And that council directs staff to amend the District of Sooke Bylaw number 301, Business License Bylaw 2007, to update definitions and license types and to address license suspensions, cancellations, exemptions, and cannabis applications. Moved by Councillor Beto, seconded by Councillor St. Pierre. Anything further there? Seeing none, all those in favor? Opposed? That's carried unanimously. And then that council directs staff to bring forward an amendment to modernize the district business license policy. Moved by Councillor Bateman, seconded by Councillor St. Pierre. The other piece is just, I don't know how current the fee structure is, and if it's, so I think it would be good to know, is it too much, too little, just right, in that report when it comes forward.
Your Worship, Council, through the comparison chart that's included with the report, it shows that in some areas the District of Sooke is a little bit higher, and in other areas we're not. And what might be of consideration, and I can include it in the report, is perhaps businesses that are a member of the local Chamber of Commerce, have some reduction in fee, and that would all balance out.
Yeah. That's something that has been raised by the Chamber, or even with CERTA, one or the other, maybe. Could be something. It would be a good way to promote that business community that is advocating and working on behalf of all businesses. So look forward to that. Thank you for that. Okay, all those in favor? Opposed? That's carried unanimously. Okay.
Your Worship, if I might add something along the business license line and the cannabis, with the bylaw being adopted, Riverside Cannabis has been approved by the province.
Oh, Riverside has. Okay. Good for them. And I guess the other two we've heard of are going through the process as well now, and I'm assuming the others as well. So if you could let us know about the others as they come up, that would be wonderful if you can let us know that.
Certainly.
Okay, congratulations to them. Do they know that yet? They must know that. Okay, but I guess us adopting the bylaw tonight would have been the final piece of that.
Now the process is to notify the province that we've done our end.
Okay.
And then it'll be complete.
Oh, wonderful. Okay, that's great. Okay, thank you very much. 2019 long line painting. Okay, so very good, robust report. It's moved that council authorized staff to contract Scottish line painting to perform long line painting throughout the District of Sooke, and that's been seconded by Councillor Beddoes. Did I hear that? Okay. Sorry, Fire Chief, did you come up here just for this? No. We'd like to see you, though. Okay, so it's nice for you to pop up. One question I had about this report was, I wasn't sure if it captured a certain crosswalk or not. So the crosswalk by the RCMP station, like on Church Road, just at Country Road, that crosswalk was missed in the last round of line painting. And also on Throop Road, there's the driveway that goes up to middle school, and there's two different crosswalks. So one was repainted, but the other one wasn't. And they're both highly used by young people who are going from like the skate park and then crossing over. So I think that one and the Church Road one for sure need to be done, but I couldn't tell by this report if that was actually included or not. So I'm hoping that if they aren't, that they are added, and if they are in there, then that's fabulous.
Duly noted, Your Worship.
Okay. And great timing. This is excellent. So call the question. All those in favor? Opposed? That's carried unanimously. So glad to see this work happening so quickly. So I really appreciate staff collaborating with Colwood in particular to get this done. 11.3, rescue pumper apparatus procurement. Chief Mount, good to see you.
Good evening, Your Worship and Council. This report is to advise Council that Hub Fire Engines was the successful proponent under our recent RFP to replace our reserve engine. The amount came to $778,000. We had received 3 proposals in total from 3 different suppliers. We had a matrix that kind of evaluated this based upon price, lowest bid, the build time, and other desirable criteria. You can see in the actual report section there that Hub Fire Engines was the lowest bidder as well, had the best proposed bid. This amount is before taxes. We have to pay the GST, so the GST is about $38,000. The interesting thing here is that the chassis would be an obligation this year, and the chassis price is about $342,000, and we've allocated about $350,000 to pay for it this year, and the remainder balance would be due upon receipt in July of 2020.
Okay, so that's where in 2020 then the financial plan, does that need to be amended to capture the little bit that it'll go over because of taxes?
Your Worship, there would be an estimate of maybe $16,000, but we do anticipate that the disposal of the engine would probably, if estimating from our recent water tender, it could be close to $25,000 to $30,000 that we may get back from that.
Okay, that's great. Thank you very much for that. And I just have one request with this report and with some of the others. The page 3 is turned, so if reports can all be scanned in so they're all one way, I would really appreciate that, because then it's like, this is really awkward to do. Okay, so we have a motion here. Moved by Councillor St. Pierre that Council approve Hub Fire Engines as a successful proponent on the RFP for the purchase of new rescue pumper apparatus in the amount of $778,323 plus taxes, and seconded by Councillor Bateman. Anything on the motion? See none. All those in favor? Opposed? It's carried unanimously. Next one. Welcome back, Chief. 4x4 heavy-duty pickup trucks procurement.
This report here, 11.4, is to advise that Suburban Motors, Sigma Safety Corp, and Capit is the successful proponent for the replacement of 2 units. The need to replace these units, we identified this in previous reports and during budget deliberation. We're expecting to repurpose the 1 unit for the use with the building and bylaw department staff, and the other one could be disposed of through our actual disposal policy. We selected these based upon the proponents being based on location and price. The actual bids came within budget, and the figures all include the taxes. It's important to note that our asset management software supported us in this and showed that we had a high kind of condition index that showed that the condition was quite poor in both these units and not suitable for any further emergency use.
Okay, questions for the Chief? Okay, Councillor Bateman.
I guess I nervously asked this, but you say Battalion 1 was scheduled for replacement in 2021. Is the price the price available in this year's budget for you, or is it needing to be some creative?
Through your worship to Councillor Bateman, we planned for this in the budget deliberation process, and the need to replace Battalion 1 was expedited due to some critical failures in it and significant downtime there. So we do see it being useful in the building and bylaw department, but no longer reliable for emergency use.
Yeah, I wasn't questioning the need for it, but I was just wondering about in terms of 2019 budget.
Through your worship, Councillor Bateman, we moved the funds and itemized it that it was a priority there, and we had enough wildfire kind of revenue to kind of support this as well.
Okay, so we have the recommendation that Council approves Suburban Motors, Sigma Safety Corp, and Capit as the successful proponents under the RFP for the purchase of a 4x4 extended cab long box pickup truck canopy installed in the amount of $738,71. Moved by Councillor Logans, seconded by Councillor St. Pierre. Any further questions? All those in favor? Opposed? It's carried unanimously. And then that Council approves Suburban Motors, Sigma Safety Corp, and Capit as successful proponents under the RFP for the purchase of a 4x4 crew cab short box pickup truck canopy and install in the amount of $68,659.95. Moved by Councillor Bateman, seconded by Councillor Beddoes. And all of these would be decaled and logoed up accordingly, right?
That's correct, Your Worship. Everything's all inclusive in that final price, including taxes. Yeah.
Okay. All those in favor? Opposed? Is carried unanimously. Thank you very much. Okay. Thank you very much, Chief. Correspondence. We removed everything that had to do with the farm trusts. So here I'm looking for a motion that the correspondence received April 18th to May 7th be received and filed accordingly for the record. Moved by Councillor St. Pierre and seconded by Councillor Beddoes. All those in favor? Opposed? This carried unanimously. And were there any follow-ups from anyone on the correspondence? Seeing that we have removed.
Okay. I have a number of pieces of correspondence that I received in my email that I haven't been able to locate yet in the package.
Okay.
And I'm not certain they're there. So I could just bring them up at our next regular council, or I can try and mention them now and see if we can match them up.
Maybe the next one would be good.
I'm okay with that if that works.
See it in front of me.
Yeah, just that might be easier, I think.
Okay. All right.
Okay. Councillor Bateman?
I had C, E, F, and N.
C, E. All right. Can you, okay, so because I can't go back and forth, I'm going to just read out, I'm going to scroll through this and read out, and you just tell me if that's what the one that you want. Because when I start scrolling through it, it doesn't have the letter. So I'm just going to read them out, okay? City of Abbotsford letter, another City of Abbotsford letter. We have one from Team Sooke, Wanda Fuca, which is great. I look forward to them arriving.
There was a request for a second family on that one, or for sponsorship of a second family. Is that something we actively need to do?
They would come forward with a grant.
Okay.
Like the Team Wanda Fuca puts together something, and they'll come forward and formally ask for something. Sometimes it's transit bus.
Okay, I thought this was the ask, but I guess not.
I didn't see it that way, but
no, it's cool.
They're just updating us on what they're doing. They're not asking that they're in the process of. For the speculation tax,
Yeah,
is that one? Okay.
Yeah, I thought I should comment on that because we're taking a bit of stick for not replying to Ms. George, to her earlier letter to us early in our term. And I just wanted to, what they're seeking is relief from the speculation tax on a property they own in Whiffen Spit. Their primary home is in Alberta, I believe. And just to be clear, there was a UBCM resolution to the province to give local governments the opportunity to have some leeway with the speculation tax. And the response from the Minister of Finance and Ministry of Municipal Affairs and Housing was that BC's housing crisis has spiraled out of control, hurting people, businesses, and communities. And it goes on, and it basically states that speculation tax is best administered at the provincial level, as the province has the most appropriate audit and compliance tools. So effectively, and with all due respect to Ms. George, we can't do much here at this level.
So we have advocated to have Sooke exempted. That passed. It was carried. It wasn't unanimous by council of the day. We have since made that pitch, and we made that pitch at UBCM, but it does lie with the province. So at this point, it's out of our hands. UBCM had a different position on how they wanted it approached. The province took a different approach, and that's fine. So at this point, there's really not much we can do about it. Councillor Beddoes?
Should we not just maybe send her a letter that it's a provincial responsibility and it's out of our hands?
We have a letter on file that we have sent to the MLA, so a more appropriate one would be that, on behalf of anyone impacted by this, we had sent this letter, and our position has not changed on that. And so we have done some advocacy work. It's just
stop us from getting this, month after month, getting the same sort of thing, and there's nothing we can do about it. So.
No, there isn't much more we can do about it. Mr. Schaefer.
And Your Worship, because the initial missive was directed to the Premier, as is the follow-up, and we're simply copied on it, it's not. I it's generally not our practice to reply to things we're only CC'd on,
Yeah.
only the ones that we're actually directed at.
Yeah, and that's fine. And in terms of Airbnbs, that is noted in here, some of that work is already happening through our industry, working into the hotel tax. We funded that consultant report, and I suspect that'll be making its way to us in that way. Okay. So moving along, there's the comments from Mr. Boucher, I believe, on Highway 14 improvements. We have cycling. I don't know who this is from. I can't tell. Anyway, it's on cycling infrastructure funding.
I just wanted to quickly address that one. Mr. Hockley has shared an article from 2011 written by a Vancouver online columnist named Average Joe Cyclist. He had an experience in Sooke back in 2010, which he wrote about, and it was quite critical of our cycling infrastructure, and of course he had good reason to a degree, but over the last 7 or 8 years some really good progress is being made, and we were a sprawl community, and cycling was not a priority, so we're getting there, I think would be the answer.
There's bike racks now at Whiff and Spit, are they not?
Yeah, there is some bike racks down there. So we're improving in lots of ways. I
We
think
are, yes.
The criticism from Average Joe Cyclist was that he was riding along the Sooke Road and feeling a little like he was taking his life in his hands.
Well, and I don't doubt that. It's just the trail system now is excellent
Yes.
compared to what it was then, and it's a far preferred, and we are doing a lot, so that's great. Okay.
So Highway 14.
Yeah. And then we did get good news on the Sexual Assault Center for some funding. That's great. The CRD, all the access, food access. Is there anything else? Because there's all the food lands. That's all been moved on.
Mm-hmm.
Coalition of Child Care Advocates.
The 10-a-day childcare, is that what we're talking about right now?
I'm just scrolling along. That's
Okay.
all just material that we're receiving.
Okay, so I had some comments on the 10-a-day childcare. I was curious, given I read through the material fairly carefully, and I was wondering whether or not there was any room for input into their stuff, whether or not there was the option of paying a subsidy to parents to stay at home, whether or not we could actually suggest to them that affordable housing at home keeps kids at home and offers, for example, daycare spaces in a neighborhood. School District 62 was not on the list of school districts that were on board, and the District of Sooke is not on the list of supporting the program. So just a couple of things of note. I don't know what we can do about it.
I don't know either.
But certainly we should be supporting the program, the 10-a-day childcare.
Yeah, and I think it's just when we do our child, like this can all come back during our childhood, our needs assessment and the like. Just at this point, I sort of received it as an informational report, and I'm like, okay, I don't.
Also really enjoyed the neighborhood network model and how we could potentially support parents even if they weren't sending their kids to daycare. So the idea of having resources within the neighborhood.
Mm-hmm. Where that's possible.
Where it's possible.
It's not feasible everywhere.
Nope.
So. Okay, anything else? Foodlands. That's all moved off. It's a lot to scroll through. Like, I'm only on page 85 of 204. So is there anything else?
Yes. 2 letters from Mayor Lisa Helps regarding climate emergency and transportation that I would suggest be forwarded to the Climate Action Committee.
Okay, so if you want to make... What page is that on?
God knows. I'm sorry, I can't scroll through.
376 is the Lisa Helps.
Thank you.
I already know the page numbers down.
Do you know what page it is in the... Oh, here we are.
Oh, I just got, this is the handout that I got.
Okay, so why don't we just send the 2 letters, correspondence from Victoria, to the Climate Action Committee. Okay?
Deal with it further then.
Yeah, moved by Councillor St. Pierre, seconded by Councillor Bateman. Okay, all those in favor? Opposed is carried unanimously. Anything else?
Entrepreneur Immigration Regional Pilot. Are we interested in doing anything with that in terms of local business?
If so, I would give that some thought, talk to the chamber, put a notice of motion forward.
how do we want to follow up on that then?
I don't know. I don't have an answer for you. It's just sort of information here, and it's just, you know, you hear of staffing resources and our resources. So if we want to initiate something, you need to contemplate what resources and who, what, where.
Can we have staff forward this to the chamber and see what they do with it? Is that useful or not?
You could forward it to the chamber. I don't know.
Also?
I don't know if it
I'm
is.
having coffee with them tomorrow at 10.
You want to pass it to them? Yeah,
There we go.
Yay.
Councillor Beddoes is going to share that with. I mean, some of this I think is on us. What is we're wanting to see and have that dialogue is also on us to forward and on
it's
to
an opportunity.
whomever.
I just don't know who to send it to. So
Yeah, well, send it to Councillor Beddoes and he'll provide it.
you don't have enough to do, do you?
Right here. I just had it to them tomorrow.
Yeah, that's perfect. Yeah, and then I would let it sort of incubate there, and then Councillor Bateman is on the EDG along with Councillor McMath, so talking point for next time.
Yeah. Perfect.
That's, I mean, in some ways, that's how some things should
Perfect.
flow out. Yeah, that would be, and they can let us know.
The Burnaby expanding investment opportunities seems to be an initiative on their part to change some elements of the municipal charter to give us a better portfolio of investments.
Mm-hmm.
I think we should be supporting that.
You'll get way more about that at UBCM.
Oh, so we're just going to do that at UBCM?
Yeah.
Okay.
They're probably giving, some of the letters now that you'll come through are things that you'll likely see on the floor there.
Okay.
Ms. Rear?
Thank you, Your Worship. I just was going to note that on that entrepreneur immigration pilot program, there was a deadline, I believe, of May 1st.
Okay.
Dagnabbit.
So I don't talk.
Don't worry about it.
You can say for next year, or here, this has happened, and maybe, you know, as they get something together, it's something they may want to. It's up to you. Yeah, exactly. Anything else? So when you do receive, like I said, when you receive letters from other municipalities, it's because of resolutions that they're progressing. So they're looking to start to build support for when it hits the floor.
Excellent. I think it was item S from a letter from Minister of Housing and Municipal Affairs, Lena Robinson. Lots of good information that I thought maybe should be forwarded to the Affordable Housing Committee.
Okay, so materials from the letter from May 7th, and to forward the letter and the attached report to the Housing Committee for their information. By Councillor St. Pierre, seconded by Councillor Bateman. Anything further? Councillor Logans?
It may be the case where this committee meets after the report is completed, so I'm not sure what information would be brought forward right away, but we could take a look and see if there's anything that we could, I guess, move on or look at in the meantime.
Well, it seemed like the place for it.
Yeah, it would be the right place for it to go. Yeah. Okay. All those in favor? Opposed is carried unanimously. And we have a nice letter here from the Lions on Sooke. And we've already moved receipts, so that's good. Okay.
And congratulations to the Sooke Lions and Councillor Beddoes for a good day out.
You can't speak to it, though.
No. I'm not going to speak to Sooke. I just want to speak that the council's representative at Sooke was a big, big hit, and the swag that we handed out was very much appreciated. And, I had a wonderful time there, and I really appreciated staff there answering questions. I was there most of the day. I had a great time. Got beat up a few times by some citizens, but...
No, I think it was great. I really liked it as well. Really, really solid first year for sure. Not going there. Okay, Council and CAO verbal reports. I'll turn to Mr. Schaefer first if he has anything to report out.
Nothing this evening, Your Worship.
Okay. Anything from anyone else? Councillor Logans.
Thank you. Yes, so I attended Sooke again. Excellent event. That was a lot of fun. But yes, the Wanafika Water Commission moved 2 motions that affect our community, so I'll just read them out. Sorry about how long these are. The first is the Sun River Reservoir Civil Claim Settlement and Implications, that the Juan de Fuca Water Distribution Commission directs staff to draft an agreement for commission approval between Sun River Estates Limited and the CRD for the transfer of land for the new and future reservoirs and funding for required development reservoir capacity. Proceed with the design and construction of a new bolted steel reservoir to provide capacity for the future development requirements and to compensate for lost storage capacity in the existing reservoir, and fund the Juan de Fuca water distribution share of the new bolted steel reservoir up to $930,000 in funds remaining in the Sun River Reservoir Capital Project. So that's one. That's a good news. And the next good news is that we passed a motion for the proposed bulk water station on Otter Point Road. So that's that the Juan de Fuca Water Distribution Commission directs staff to proceed with the design and construction of a bulk water station on Otter Point Road and adjust the 2019 capital plan for the service in the amount of $140,000, of which up to $90,000 will be funded from the capital funds on hand and $50,000 will be funded from the Juan de Fuca Electoral Area Community Works Fund, with no increase in 2019 capital funding, and that the Juan de Fuca Water Distribution Commission recommend to the CRD Board that the 2019 capital plan for the service be adjusted to include bulk water station on Otter Point Road and adjust the capital plan in the amount of $140,000, of which up to $90,000 will be funded by the capital funds on hand and $50,000 funded from the electoral area. Hopefully you caught up, but it's all on the CRD website. You can just Google it.
No, there'll be another water filling station on Otter Point.
Right.
Which is great, because we only have the one
that's
right
all
now.
the details there.
Thank you, Councillor Logans, for attending that meeting. Councillor Beddoes?
Yeah, I just let you know, we're going to be breaking ground at Sea Park on Thursday. And we're invited, I think Tim is coming down from the paper, and hopefully we'll get a photo op of a shovel in there. It's actually a big shovel. But it's moving ahead. We're really excited about it. Don't look for parking down there for a while.
That's very exciting, and Councillor Bateman will be attending on my behalf. So thank you, Anne. Thank you. Well, that's exciting news. Long been waiting for that. Councillor St. Pierre?
So I attended the Recycling Council of BC conference, the 2019 in Whistler. There was a huge amount of excellent information for various initiatives that we might want to undertake at a municipal level, and a lot of other good information that's just useful. That'll probably be useful in the Climate Action Committee. So all sorts of things were included, recycling, possibly making use of our plastics depot in terms of value added, initiatives in terms of dealing with food waste, a few different areas where, honestly, municipalities can actually work at a legislative level to try and help things along. A lot of talk about trying to ban single-use plastics, including a lot of information on what's been going on with Vancouver and their banning the straw, which they thought would be one of the low-hanging fruit and turned out not to quite be. So a really good sort of, here's a lot of experience that they've had that they can now transfer to other municipalities. Some excellent contacts with some of the players in Victoria and Vancouver in terms of legislation and efforts that are being made and resources that we can tap into as a smaller district. So excellent in terms of connections and tying in with other groups that are doing good work.
Councillor Bateman?
So, I attended Sookerama too. I also went as your alternative to the CRD Board of Directors meeting last week. And that was an interesting, I did second Mr. Hicks's motion on that bulk water station. So that was a good moment. There was, the grumpy taxpayers were there with a presentation asking the CRD to do a better job of communications in terms of a monthly highlight package. So, we're not alone. Okay, it's a problem everywhere. It's there's so many ways in which you can reach out to the public, and everyone has their favored ways. So you need to cover a wide waterfront, and the idea of this monthly highlights package is something that we could look at here as well. The main topic of discussion at the Board of Directors meeting was Heartland and how biosolids are going to be handled with the new McLaughlin Point water treatment sewage treatment facility opening at the end of 2020. And of course, we also ship our biosolids to Heartland. And the question is, will it for $200 a ton, cement manufacturers will take this and burn them in their kilns, and burn the biosolids in the kilns. So that's a potential solution. And the other piece was organics waste, and there's a discussion now. Victoria councillors are very keen to see organics, organic composting, and others are seeking renewable natural gas usage, where gasification would transform those organics into energy. And the interesting thing now with our food scraps is they're shipped to Heartland, and then they're shipped across the water and then to northern Alberta, of all places. Apparently, they used to go to Washington State, but now for some reason it's up to northern Alberta. So something has to be done about it locally. And we in Sooke, what's that? A lot of gas coming out of me right now, too. So I'll stop. Okay, that's it from me.
Councillor St. Pierre?
Just to add an additional comment, one of the presenters at the conference dealt specifically with food waste, dealt specifically with a program that's actually dealing with that, something called Food Mesh combined with Loop, and is basically diverting all of the food out of their landfill into local farms and actually into the people in the community that actually need the food. So there are better solutions, and they're upcoming.
Yeah, but this is food waste, though. Like, not all the food waste is suitable to share and give to another. Certainly, I wouldn't be doing that with what.
No, that's why they go to the farms where they get infected animals.
Oh, I see. Okay.
Animals need farms and people.
Right. Okay. Okay.
I should state that CRD Director Hicks and Director Izzet were very keen on the organic composting solution. So you might want to touch base with those two as you move forward.
Okay, so thank you very much for attending that meeting. I was on the way there and got the call from my daycare and had to pick Ewan up like that. So then I got on the phone, Councillor Bateman reorganized this day and went off completely unprepared into this meeting. But they are getting you all set up there. And I admit that I sit on the governance committee, and that resolution about the monthly highlights and all those recommendations, I was quite on the fence about that. Part of the feedback came back with they do media releases, they're tweeting out, they have all the minutes come up, they have they have a website you can subscribe to. So then if you do that, what are you taking away from staff? What are you slowing down to do a highlights report? And then who's creating the highlights? So there's a bit of, I can see the pro and I can see the con to both sides. So I was on the fence about it and figured I would debate it more at the board, which you attended, and I'm assuming it passed. In terms of food waste, yes, there is the case where some of it's going up to Cobble Hill, though, I thought, and then some to someplace over on the mainland, but that might all be changing. And the whole thing was to look at a loop, because right now, Heartland flares, they burn off what isn't going through the grid, and this way they would not have to burn off. They could actually have a complete loop around and put more renewables into the gas line. So it's an interesting concept there altogether. But thank you for attending. I really appreciate that. Last week I was in Vancouver attending Access to Justice, and I was a bit nervous about going to this. It's chaired by the Chief Justice of BC, President of the Bar Association, and a lot of it is about barriers to legal services, mainly through families and First Nation communities and the like, and how can the justice system look at making changes. So a lot of discussion on that. It was a very interesting day. I'm coming in as a complete lay person giving this perspective, but it's on behalf of local government. I shared my perspective of a mayor, what I hear from, what families are struggling with. So I think I provided something useful and suggested also talking to UBCM on different initiatives that they're getting out for, because you'll see there that we've long since lobbied for changes for the justice system as well. And tomorrow's Tuesday, Wednesday I'm off to UBCM executive meetings and one of my committees that I chair, Minister Conroy is unable to attend, but we'll be getting some news on the mental health strategy that is being rolled out. It comes out of one of my committees that are being observing, as well as a few other things, and then I have a few conference calls in there. So most of my days start at 7 in the morning. And one item was to do a Taste of BC. So on the Thursday, every executive member brings in some food items to share from their particular region. And last year, I just couldn't pull it off. I'm like, what can I bring food-wise that will clear airport security, right? And be in this little bottle that clears all the liquids. Like, I didn't know what to do, and I didn't know, like, what's perishable, non-perishable. So I just didn't do anything. This year, I'm taking the float plane, though. So I have some salmon, some honey, some salt, and gin. Because I don't have to worry about. I don't have to worry. It's different. Well, I have to somehow. If I could just pick it up, and that's where I'm like emailing Tony. Do you have any radishes? Like they could dip them into the salt, right? And I could do that because, like, how else would you taste the salt? Like, I need something that isn't going to wilt. So I thought a radish would be perfect. I'm like, who has radishes? But now that security, like, okay, float plane is a little bit different because I'm downtown for First Nations Relations Committee, and then as soon as that's done, so I'll see if I can grab some bread from Little Vienna, if I can just make that happen.
How about some edible cannabis?
Well, I thought about that too. I'm like, should I do this? We'll see.
We'll take a collection for bail for you.
See what happens there. And I will also share that UBCM's second vice, Brian Frankel, who is from the interior, was vacationing in Sooke up until Saturday, I believe. His wife has always wanted to visit the islands, so they were up island. They did the circle route, and they were camping at Jordan River and came through. And I never managed to connect with him, but it was nice that he was in our part of the community. So yeah, very exciting. And yeah, so that'll be that. Okay, so we have notice of motions. So, Councillor Beddoes, that council directs staff to research and report back on options for municipal community garbage collection. So Councillor Beddoes has moved that, so we're looking for a seconder perhaps. Seconded by Councillor Bateman. Discussion, go. You can now speak
just
to
that
it.
I'm assuming that garden refuse drop-off would be included in that? Okay, whoever's doing it?
I would say yes,
Yeah,
because
I would like
garbage
that anyway.
sort of
Yeah.
now I think can then be defined into many different things,
I
but the
agree.
collective garbage at the top.
Sure.
Okay, Mr. Schaefer.
Your Worship, further to that motion, it would be helpful for staff if we were to get a better understanding about the scope of Councillor Beddoes' motion in that are you looking for a report on setting up a municipal garbage collection service or specifying a drop-off point? You know, because it's a big issue.
My original idea was that because 70% of the people have garbage collection now, I think it might even be higher than that, but it's that 30% that are stuffing the garbage in ditches and everywhere else in other people's garbage cans, that we would have it placed on like our taxes and everybody contribute. So it should be zero impact on the homeowner, the one that's been getting garbage delivery, and that we don't buy garbage trucks, but we contract it out to be picked up. So we're not looking into purchasing garbage trucks and hiring people. It's just, put out a contract and see where that goes. That's sort of where I would like it to go, but if, staff are free to work out other details, okay. But I hope that's what you're looking for. Anything else?
Councillor Logans.
We actually had the starts of these discussions in the Climate Change Action Committee, and I would recommend that we refer this to the Climate Change Action Committee for further direction to our council on what we would want to put in this report, because we need to decide what we want to put in the report and then ask that of staff. So I think it would be great to send that to the Climate Change Action Committee, because there were several different opportunities that we could work on as a community that would contribute to that same end goal. And even ideas from staff about having like one big pickup day where we do like large pickups of couches, for instance, like the large item pickups that we do once a year in the community or what have you. So having that fulsome discussion about it, what exactly we're requesting as a report back, so that we can get details on how we can actually roll something out. It might be prudent to send it to that committee.
Councillor Beddoes?
Yeah, I don't have a problem as long as it's looked at, and my only concern is I don't want to see it, sometimes when things go to committee, they die there. And, that is a concern. And I was approached by a number of people in the community that did want to see some action on this file. And I'm open to any which way we can get it done, but we get her done.
Well, in terms of it dying at a committee, is even if the committee doesn't support it, they would have to report to council and sort of explain why. Like, they can't conclude that. Like, let's say we as council want to see this happen in 4-year time. It's a committee could come by, yeah, we looked at that, but for these reasons, blah, blah, or those reasons, that. Like, it's really, they can't take it and end it. It would have to come back to council.
Yeah, I'm fine with that.
With their feedback. Further to this, it is a very large subject. Once, many years ago, the district did I think it was like store it, don't pour it, or something. There was like an event where you could bring any hazardous chemicals that you had in your house and bring them here and drop them off, and they would be like no questions asked. You could get rid of any harmful pesticides, old paint, any of that, and they hauled it away. And that was a really good program that we had, because people were pouring it in the storm drains or flushing it down the toilets. So there's a way to sort of round up those chemicals. It's also, I think, through this, there has to be a discussion about burning and open burning. So it was intended through the burning that developers clearing land could burn piles of a certain size, or people had branches and the like from storms they would collect and burn. Sometimes people are just burning whatever. Like, it's not a wood fire, it's garbage, it's furniture, it's old clothes, it's whatever. And that's what other neighbors are phoning, because they're saying, like, they don't want to tell on their neighbor, but the neighbor has decided to burn their old couch. Like, it's like, nice. So it's, and also, is it, given how dry it is it reasonable for people to still burn in April when it's so dry? Like, I'm hearing of wildfires everywhere, and that might need to, like, it could be too late. It's despite rain that we had, it's still been an overall dry season. So if burning isn't allowed, then is there some way that we can do something to do with landscaping on district lands or not? So, like, there's a lot here. So I really think before we say staff put this together, I think it'll start, the committee approach is a good idea, to start hashing some things out and doing a bit more research, and then saying, we think council should have staff examine this or that in different pieces, but actually have a more fulsome conversation, and then and then as this comes forward, maybe staff can pull from the last climate action what report and minutes are related to that as a starting point for conversation would be appropriate. Councillor St. Pierre, then Beddoes.
Oh, sorry. I was just going to say that I entirely agree with the idea of setting up the climate action, and I think that we're going to need basically a larger strategy in terms of dealing with solid waste, because there's a lot of different waste streams, and everything from the brush that it would be nice to have chipped to dealing with composting. Are we going to do it locally? Are we going to ship it out to Heartland? What exactly is that all going to look like, 10, 20 years down the line? What are we setting up in terms of that sort of thing? So, yeah. And I think that there's also just probably some low-hanging fruit, like a yearly large item pickup, which would be wonderful to have, and possibly, as Councillor Beddoes was suggesting, more quickly moving towards a pickups, a weekly pickup, so we don't have to end up with stuff in our ditches. But we're going to be looking at the whole picture, and that'll be good.
The other parts, just to add, are also that part of one of our other resolutions that we had to do with people putting garbage out for days and bears getting into it. So that was part of the enforcement. Like, what does that look like, and what can we do about that to people that are not taking care of their refuse properly? I lost my other point, Councillor Beddoes.
No, I was just looking at, are we going to ditch that first one and just go with the second one? Is that the...
No, it's all part of the referral. Okay. So that motion, that your notice of motion would remain, but okay. That it will go, instead of going to staff, it'll go to committee, I think.
Okay, but again, I am a little concerned that we're going to lose the thrust of what I'm looking for. Is sort of like a bi-weekly garbage pickup is what I'm looking at. And I know there's also these other things going in there, and I don't want it to get bogged down with all these other things. So I go with going to the committee, but caution the committee that that's my concern right now, is a bi-weekly garbage pickup.
No, and I don't disagree with you, but I think moving to that without having the conversation about all the other things, you need to build the case for it. And also, we have challenges with transfer station zoning in our municipalities, and that would need to be looked at as well. Because that's been a reason why we don't have anything in here, is the zoning and the lack of some landowners to even want to rezone. Okay, so in this case, we have a motion that's been moved and seconded. So procedurally, if there's do we amend it to go to committee, or what? Because it's been moved and seconded for staff to report back, but how do we change that so that it goes to committee first? Where does that insert?
Your Worship,
Your Worship, I would just do a friendly amendment to change the word staff to the Climate Change Action Committee, and then you can do the second one as well if you wanted to.
Okay, so the friendly amendment would be that Council direct the Climate Action Committee to research and report back on options for municipal community garbage collection, and then the rest of it doesn't need to be there, and provide recommendations to council. Yeah, and provide recommendations to council, and report back. Yeah, that'll all come through the reporting back anyway, and then the minutes will capture the points that we raised that we want the committee, and if not, Councillor St. Pierre will raise them. Right? Okay, all those in favor? Opposed? Carried unanimously. Well, you'll be on the committee. Okay, so our next one here from Councillor St. Pierre is that Council directs staff to provide a map of the Belvista Phillips and Highway 14 intersection in order to identify potential public parking opportunity on district lands. Is there a seconder for that notice of motion? Well, you can't second your own motion. I'm looking for a seconder. Seconded by Councillor Bateman. Okay, speaking to it, Councillor St. Pierre.
Okay, so this has to do with the work that's going to be happening with the multi-stakeholder, or the multiple stakeholders, CPark, the museum, the SCA, Sooke, the Community Association. And it's basically about looking at that particular intersection in terms of what parking is available, because parking is an issue in that area because of the museum and because of CPark and because it's a bit of a cultural recreation center for the space. I guess this might be our skin in the game, so to speak, if we actually have some parking that we could potentially offer. Don't look at me like that. I'm sorry. But that would be speaking to this, looking for some information just on what are the potential assets that the district has in that area that could potentially be used for a little bit of parking. Okay, so Mr. Schaefer?
Your Worship, that particular intersection is almost entirely Ministry of Transportation, and we own virtually none of it. However, the maps that I provided council with, that one right there, would indicate, I think, that the district-owned lands don't exist in that particular area.
Okay, so for clarity, I think what
But we
maybe,
can certainly bring back a more detailed map. I mean, that's easy.
if staffing or if the mapping department then can provide a map that just shows more of that area, and can it show like this is Ministry of Highway owned land? Because there has been some sentiment, what belongs to the district and what belongs to highways. So I think it's like, no, we're clarifying from the district that this is highways land. And then maybe we then talk to highways and say, how can we have determined that there's a need for parking in this area. What sort of an agreement can we work out for that? Because I had heard as well that the district owns land in this area, and I'm like, and if we just cut back some of the brushing, there could be more parking. I'm like, where? Like, where? And then Councillor St. Pierre's raised that. I'm like, I said, okay, let's find out from staff what we need to do there, and that might clarify it. So then it could be the belief that, oh, it's government, but no, actually it's highways that we need to work with and not the municipality. It'll help clarify that.
And, Your Worship, I can simply ask Mr. Goebel to put together, to add a couple of layers onto the mapping that we have, and that would indicate ownership.
Yeah,
just
and
for
for
that
this
particular
area in particular. And
yes, and we'll just give it. We'll just bring it back to you. I don't know that it. Just for your information, we won't. I mean, we'll just produce it and leave it on your desks or in your mail slots. It's perfect.
Yep, that's fine. That's great. Thank you very much. So that's been is okay. So I'll call the question that's what we're looking for there. All those in favor? Opposed? It's carried unanimously. And then the gentlemen that are on that task force, you can have that as a bit of a just to know, like, here's the map of this area, and it might clarify some things. Okay, and then lastly, council request staff to bring forward amenities policy or bylaw within a year. We need a seconder, and then you can speak to it. Seconded by Councillor Lucas. Now you can speak to it. Go ahead, Councillor St. Pierre.
Okay, so it was brought to my attention that we don't actually have an amenities policy or bylaw, which means that if we're working with developers, and in most districts and areas, you can actually work with developers, and they expect you to have an amenities policy and to contribute to the amenities in the community. And we had that until recently, but then it was removed. So we no longer actually have any sort of legal standing to ask developers for anything, really. And so I think we should be doing something about that. Our staff is incredibly busy, and they're doing work that would actually feed into this already. So I'm suggesting within a year, but this would allow us to get some teeth into our bylaws so we can actually work with developers in a better way.
Councillor Bateman.
Yeah, I'm not completely clear on this, but I think when that amenities policy was canceled in whenever that was, 2 or 3 years ago, it was then the district was to follow the best practices from I don't know which ministry it was, but there is a BC amenities policy, I believe. Is that right? And do you, in fact, the question through you to Ms. Campbell, how do you do this?
I'm not aware of a provincial amenity.
The
province through the Local Government Act.
Or something.
Oh, no.
Okay, I'll have to look that up.
Councillor Beddoes?
To your worship, Mr. Campbell, would this be something that would help you in doing what you do?
Through your worship, yes, I think it would, and I think within a year is reasonable. Once the TMP, like the Transportation Master Plan and the Parks and Trails Master Plan are done, the very immediate next step is to work on our development cost charges bylaw, and we would be looking at collecting for parks in that as well and expanding on projects. So knowing what we're collecting DCCs for, then and then we also have our affordable housing needs assessment done and our daycare needs assessment done. We'll have a lot of information by then to then look at what amenities we should be collecting for and how much. And so I think that within a year is reasonable.
Okay, so I'll call the question then. All those in favor? Opposed? It's carried unanimously. It's interesting. I just found the news article, and the policy itself had been outdated a few times to the point where what was in place didn't work at all. So if the original policy had actually remained, then it might have actually led to something. But because of a stream of amendments, now it's sort of clicking in. Nobody was using it it was scaled back, then it didn't actually do anything. So then, okay, abandon it if it's not. Why do we have this policy if it doesn't work? The idea being to bring forward something that does, which is where we are. Well done, Councillor St. Pierre. But now you see what happens when there's nothing. Okay.
Yep.
All right, so report of released in-camera resolutions, of which we do have one, and that is that council offer the position of Chief Administrative Officer to Norm McInnis with a salary of $165,000 with the employment contract to be forwarded once finalized by the district solicitor. I'll just note that everything has been signed off. Media release has been drafted to go tomorrow, and of course I made the announcement at the start of the meeting. Okay? And motion to adjourn the open portion of the meeting and reconvene the in-camera session.
Why did you say that with such relish?
I
was getting out of here.
Councillor St. Pierre and seconded by Councillor Bateman. All those in favor, opposed, is carried unanimously. And thank you very much, Ms. Deutscher, for staying with us tonight.